and go.
That's not there.
Go.
It started with and go.
All right.
There was no half countdown. There was no audible crossover in our voices. I mean, there always is. We always fucking talk over each other.
Yeah. Welcome. Welcome. I don't know why I said thank you. I guess thank you for 405 subscribers as of talking, but we'll round it out to 400. Get that thank you out of the way. And we mentioned it on the stream. But, okay, that works too. We might as well round it all the way up to like 400, 500 at that point.
I mean, if you want to do it in terms of the closest 1,000, right, we're going to have to rank down to 0. So. Yeah,
that is true. But one day, we might be able to pull it to 1,000. Double or nothing. But yeah, thank you for 400. We are here with anniversary gifts that we're gonna chew on. We're like a pet. So, do you get your pet Christmas presents? I know they can't comprehend Christmas, but do you still get them something anyway?
No.
No. Loki got 5 presents. And we didn't even think he would live to Christmas. But yeah, so he got tons. Not that he got to play with them for long. But point is, that's us. It's Christmas, except it's not Christmas, it's anniversary.
Do you know why? You know why we don't get her any presents? My cat, she doesn't give a shit about anything other than food. She's never wanted to play with anything. Ever. She's the least curious creature I've ever encountered.
If you drag a bit of string in front of it, it just doesn't care.
Well, I don't know how to explain it. I guess it's she just gets bored of things quickly. She doesn't bother, right? And I know you're meant to play with the pet, right? But she'll get bored even if you're still trying to play with her. That was the fucking point of this. This stupid animal. She just gets sick of things, and she'll make it very clear when she's sick of it too. When she's either sick of being petted, you'll be injured.
Yeah.
If she's sick of playing, she'll just stop, and she doesn't really play anyway. It's just I know it's what they do, but it seems way too aggressive to play. Because basically, to get her to interact with any kind of toy, you have to annoy her with it. She doesn't interact with it inherently. You have to sort of hit her with it. You have to tickle her with this thing, otherwise she won't even care that it's in existence. Although the one thing that works is this stick with a string on the end. It's got a bunch of little cushiony items dangling off the string, like a little moon and then stars. And if you just sort of swing it around on the floor, like when you have the rope and someone swings it around and you have to jump over it. If you do that in front of her, she'll try and get it and she'll just attack it. But it's scary, man.
Okay, literally, all I had to do was something just had to be reasonably long and or small. Move it slightly, and that would be it. It either had to be this long. The amount of shoelaces or laces generally that were just strung across the house.
Laces.
Yes.
What other laces do you have?
I don't know. I had pajama bottoms, and they had waist ones. I've got them. I've got right now. I've got joggers on, and they have they've got a lace around the waist.
Yeah.
One of them.
Yeah,
I don't think you'd call them. They're not a shoelace. They're just a lace, right? So he'd get some of them, making some of my trousers completely unwearable because I lose that feature. And then shoelaces and all that stuff.
Oh no.
And they were sprung around all of our door handles. So everywhere around the house had dangly little things, and you'd move him slightly, and that would be it. He's getting tied up in it. And it was the same for any small furry thing, which was just one poor toy. We don't know what was up with it, but it was this little sock filled with something. We assumed catnip in the end because of how crazy it made him, but it could have just been normal feathers or something. But he would literally just tear it to pieces. like bite on the top, claws in the sides, and kicks the shit out of the bottom. And they just do it till he literally tires himself out and falls asleep with using it as a pillow, because he's like still got a hold of it, but then he just has his head on it like after he got tired. And it was always quite funny.
Kicks it.
But,
Cats can't kick.
Yeah, he do. He kicked it. He literally, basically, like, say you're hugging someone, and then you were to like bring up your knees and just start violently kicking their legs. Basically, that's what he'd do to the thing. He'd grab it close with the top half and just go ham with the lower half, kicking the shit out of it, tearing it to pieces with like his feet claws.
Feet claws.
Yeah. And yeah, so that was always funny to watch. And then no, it was just funny. It was really fucking funny. But yeah, I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm getting sad. So we have not that much to talk about realistically, do we? I mean, like, we didn't get given that much.
No.
But what?
No. Well, I guess I kind of wish that I could look at the stream or remember more of it. Because they did talk, and because the thing is, you weren't even there for this sort of little moment where they talked about the holiday events, and they addressed them sort of quite head on, or at least they addressed them. Right, I almost didn't expect it to be sort of. It was a very small section, but it was still dedicated to what they've been doing with the holiday events, and I guess there's sort of this not acceptance. It's something we'd already theorized that they really are just that actually they're dedicating time to these holiday events, and it is actually affecting development of other things. And I guess it always seemed like a good idea, or at least we sort of agreed that it was a good idea for them to do this to the holiday events. But now we know that it has, in a sense, delayed season 4. And I suppose I want to touch on that first, and whether or not you still think that doing it to the holiday events is a good thing. Because it doesn't feel good right now to me, because I don't, but mainly because I don't benefit from the holiday events. I've literally never been in a position where I hadn't finished the performance pass before a XP event came along.
Even the Christmas
only because
one, right?
if Halloween had one, then I would have benefited from that. But because of that, I never feel that benefit. But I still think in the long run, it was a good idea. The only thing that sours it is it's just literally just the labeling of these updates as seasons, even though they still have to do that, and it's only because of the connotations that seasons have, is that people expect a certain amount of regularity from it. Although I feel like a lot of long-term Deep Rock fans know that's not going to be the case. We sort of said that it should be the case anyway, that season 4 should be a year out from season 2. No matter what. But I think it might have just been the case that it literally wouldn't have been anything.
Yeah, because I think, and this is the thing, I did mention this, like, I didn't expect them to do all of it now. Like, I thought they were going to go hard on the holiday events when it occurred, right? This year. Like, this year, they would have done all the holiday events, got them all to, like, the highest standards they can bother to put themselves to, fill up the rig to the point where you can't see the daily special, fill up your caves with double XP shit, like that kind of thing, right? Get them all to that level this year, and then from then on, they wouldn't need to do it. But literally, they've got it done now.
Yeah, exactly. I think they've done it now. And because I have to concede on the season 4 development thing, where obviously they started now, but I think they have just started now. To be fair, which means we have a very clear idea of how the amount of time that's going into season 4 as well, assuming that they finished with all the events, which I assume they must have.
And I think that is something that this. Well, right, what we have got to say is they've at least decided stuff during this period of time, right? I think over the fact that they've released a roadmap means they have an idea of what they want to do. Like, obviously, with the stuff we know, new enemies, right? We'll get way more into that later on. But that is them saying, we know what we're going to add. It's new enemies. So it shows at least during this time they've been working on that. They have been thinking about season 4, while not inherently working on it, probably a little bit, I imagine, because I doubt all of the coders and I think all the designers was actually probably working on holiday events, but maybe not all the coders. But still, most of the work has been put into the holiday events, and while that is going to affect season 4, the game as a whole is going to greatly benefit from it. Because this is the thing, season 4, while it is going to be delayed, season 5 will be able to be worked on the whole time. They will not need to do a holiday event.
You better fucking hope so.
Season 5
means. So, do you think that means that because season 5 should be this year, right? And even if it's not, it'll be like January or God save us, February latest. But still, it's like I think, especially for them, obviously, there's this weird lack of elaboration on certain things that still bothers me. But I still think at heart, I don't think they're going to let them we've talked many times before about the things that they would let themselves get away with, right? And in my opinion, I think they've let themselves get away with quite a bit. I think 2 updates in a year seems like not much. I think the one thing they wouldn't let themselves get away with is less than 2 in a year. Yeah,
probably.
But I think season 5 will probably be at the very end of the year, though.
Yeah, and I do think that is something, though. If you want to think about what they've let themselves get away with, end of quarter 2, which is literally like the first thing it says in season 4, that is going to be 8 months. That is far passing the 4 to 6 promise.
I definitely want to talk about the date. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about the promise especially, and I want to talk about it in the sense of, is it really a promise? Because I suppose probably a lot of people don't know this really. The only place to find this information about when they originally said that their goal for seasons was 4 to 6 months, I think the last time it came up was in sort of a season 2 FAQ post on the Deep Rock website, which I don't think anyone fucking visits, right? And it said this still fits within our 4 to 6 month season goal. And then you have the original original FAQ on the season concept when season 1 was announced, just explaining everything about it. It's like our goal is 4 to 6 months between seasons. I think it's fair to say that it was never a promise. It was more like a self-imposed guidelines. I don't think they were
a promise to themselves.
It was never we promise you we'll never go over 6 months. They never told us that. No. If we're being fair to them, and I think we have to.
But I think they definitely wanted to hold themselves to that guideline. But I think there was an interesting thing in the anniversary stream when they brought up season 1. Right, in their history overview thing, they brought a season 1, and they mentioned it before, but they mentioned it here, and it's it's prominent. And if you're watching this, you probably saw it yourself. They set their standards far too high for a season, or that was the kind of thing. They set the player standards. They set their goals too high for what a season is with season 1, because realistically, I shit on season 3 because it was in no way matching the other seasons in any regard of content. But I think that is, while true, I can hear a cat outside, that's really distracting. While true, it is literally that. I think it might be Murphy, like Loki's brother. He probably wants to come inside. Point is, while it's true that season 3 didn't match season 1, and I guess it's about tied with season 2.
No, it can't be. No.
Well, I feel like
I thought we agreed on this. It's all about the weapons. A weapon, even if it was just the weapons, that's still a big update.
Yeah,
and there's no getting There's just no getting around how much they need to pay in comparison. But we know they were working on those secondaries as well for a long time. They were working on the full Gen. They were working on Gen 3 as a set for longer than they were working on Season 2. So there was work being done on the weapons for Season 2 before they were working on Season 2 specifically. So it was always going to be bigger. Weapons is a big deal, and it's from now on, it's always going to be cross
Yeah.
update. I don't,
And I think
'cause otherwise,
this is
otherwise they'd
something.
have to wait. Otherwise, they'd have to wait if they wanted to do Gen 4 all at once. They'd have to wait far too long because it would
Yeah,
definitely be
and
longer than 8 months.
And I think I do want to mention this just while we're still like I think we're laying seeds for later on. New enemies has taken the slot of equipment. I think that's something worth
I'm
mentioning
actually
as
glad
well.
that you caught onto this because this was all the I talked about. I did a little bit of like research into previous things. It was all about this and coming to the conclusions about what season 4 is going to be about as an update.
Yeah.
Not necessarily as a season, but I still want to talk about the date because it says
Oh yeah.
late Q2 means June, right? And I also believe June. I don't mean there's just no reason it would get.
It says end of
the only reason it would get
right?
delayed is if they get really like carried away. And in that case, because it's already been a long wait, I would almost be not like, too upset. With
So
that.
yeah, at that point, it would just mean we would get like an actual season's worth of content, right? But
Well, no,
like
the
this is
things we are, but it's going to be like if when you think about the wait, season 4 won't be worth the wait if you've been waiting for it since season 3. But
yeah.
realistically, who has? It's going to be worth the wait from now, you know?
Yeah.
And I'd say I've been waiting a little bit longer than that, as in I've been wanting new content a little bit longer than that, but that is not representative of most people. And I'd say for at least a month, you're not waiting for the next season. Like for at least a month after the previous season comes out, you're not waiting for the next one. That wait hasn't started yet, or at least it definitely shouldn't have. I think that's the whole point of seasons.
Yeah.
The wait starts when you finish the seasonal, the performance pass and the cosmetic tree.
Or when you start feeling like you're done with the current content, right? You just when that feeling hits that like I get Rockbox, I understand. You've played and done enough of like everything they added, basically. That at that point you can start thinking about the future, and I think that is the thing that I wouldn't say they got lucky because I honestly their foresight has surprised me in that I think they did it on purpose. They knew they could extend this season. They knew they could get away with making season 4 longer because, as mentioned, it is filled to the brim with holidays. I mentioned this a while ago.
But you're making season 3 longer.
Yeah, I guess season 3 longer. Yeah. Extended season 3 longer because they. I mean, I guess technically they kind of could with season 2, but like his point is that this time of year is and was, and as you would have, anyone listening to this, you probably noticed, filled to the brim with holiday events and holiday stuff and things where you reasons to jump on. So even though like the season's been really long, it's still been quite active and quite full because there's been constant reasons to come back and play the game. Because even now,
this,
I mean,
do you think this places? Because obviously we need to think about summer, right? And that's actually why season 4 is actually, in regards to that, is actually placed in a pretty fortunate position, because it means that summer is going to be a lot easier for the game and for the players.
Yeah, especially since in the anniversary stream as well, the decoration when that bit was on the near the end. I think they talked about the summer holidays event and how that kind of started the jiggle physics of like decorations. But I think that also implies that holiday has some sort of importance. I think we can definitely going to be seeing that returning. So there definitely will be a holiday event
because it kick-started the focus on holiday events.
It probably did, yeah. To be honest with you,
that year did. To be fair, because that was the first lunar festival. That's that year. I mean, that's like over a year ago now. It had that, and then also the summer event. Sort of these things that sort of came up to almost fill for time. It felt like at the time.
Yeah, and it feels weird to think about it that way. But Oktoberfest as well.
Yeah, Oktoberfest was also pre-season 3. So it sort of started with the focus. Sort of started arguably with, the focus started with the summer one. The Lunar Festival was weird, but the summer one. I think the focus started with the summer one because they did that literally because of the gap.
Like you would have had. What would have been at that point? 4 months, right?
Yeah,
it would have been 4 months without anything to do. No season, no holiday events, no nothing.
It definitely wasn't 4 months because the summer event was July.
Get rid of the summer event. Is what I'm saying. They had to add it in there. Get rid of it. And then how much content would they have had? Like, where big was the gap if they didn't have to put in a holiday event? Because that's why they did it.
Those who brought back Oktoberfest, if you take away the ones that wouldn't have been there in a normal year, there would have been nothing between season 2 and 3. There's always
literally wouldn't it have been like Easter to October?
Well, Easter was just before season 2.
Oh right.
And so because obviously they created the summer event, they brought back Oktoberfest. What I'm saying is that in a normal year, there wouldn't have been anything between season 2 and 3 at all. It would have just been a flat
Halloween at the end, but still very, very similar.
Was Halloween before?
Yeah, Halloween's before. It came out in November.
Shit, yeah, of course it was.
Yeah, but still, it would have been. What was that? When did season 2 came out?
I'm gonna say May, right? As in, it's easy. If you think of it as the beginning of the month, it was May, because it was like, I think it was like very end of April, but obviously that meant we got it like over a week into May. So I say beginning of May.
May,
if you want to think
June,
about if when you
July,
hear a month, you think beginning of the month. It was May.
June, July, August, September. Remember, we're ignoring the 2 events that they added in this year. It would have been around almost 5 months of nothing. Of literally nothing. And they saw that. Yeah, they saw that, and they were like, okay, before we go on break, because they're also going to go break in the middle of it, let's give them a holiday event. And I think that decision... They probably saw big like term. These seasons are going to take a while, and we need something to fill that up. So we're going to pump out this summer one just as a quickie apology before we go on break. Just get this out there, and then when they come back, Oktoberfest occurred, right? And that was them full throttling and deciding that we need to amp up holiday events to fill up the gap between seasons. And I think that is, and what they have done now proves it. That was an actual legitimate thought, because obviously that was a theory we had, right? Like when we saw that they were really focusing on holiday events, we kind of put together that, oh shit, they are using them to like counteract the long season length, and now it is verified. It is entirely verified.
Yeah. What I'm saying, man, is that because where we're standing now, we're in the anniversary event, and there'll be the Easter event, but that will be it until season 4. But that's fine because they're working.
He's a season for like 2 months. Like like it's still 30 years.
Well, actually, I sort of looked at when it would be, and I think like we would still get, it would still be like almost probably a month after Easter is when we would start getting teasers.
Would it be? I'm really, really bad at the months.
Oh, I think I was working off the basis of it being at the very end of June, but that's not necessarily the case. Remember,
yeah, I think
during June. What I'm saying is, I hope it would be really good for them if the time frame is one where console players get it in June as well. So like, mid or early June, probably mid, probably not early June. I think that is
ideal,
because that means that means that it doesn't cross over into the third quarter in any way. I think I would avoid that if I was them.
Yeah,
even if it's just a console. And it would end up being on my birthday if it was July. But still, I really, even obviously we get it 2 weeks later, just by like.
So they would kind of have to do it like around the first week.
Well, no, it's like 30 days. If they did it on like the 14th, we'd get it just before June ends.
Right. So that's your deadline, Ghost Ship.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's fair too. But it's like it wouldn't be wrong though if it was at the end of June, because that still lines up with what they said. It's still the second quarter of the year. That's still the release of the update. It's literally just Microsoft and Sony certification getting in the way. That's something else entirely. But it would still look really good if every platform got it before quarter 3. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is literally the first thing that we learned on the roadmap, which to be honest is one of the top 3 biggest things we learned on the roadmap.
We thought it might happen as well. We thought that there was a chance that it could be later. Realistically, we should have expected it to be later, because we were like, why else weren't they teasing season 4 already? Why did we think it was anything else?
If it was on time, we would have started getting teasers on the anniversary stream. That's what I was saying. And the fact that obviously we didn't means it wasn't on time anyway, and well, we learned that before. We learned that it was going to be later before we would have gotten teased.
Even the roadmap being, having it to be absent for like 3 months,
being so delayed, yeah.
We should have. It should have been automatic, but we just sort of there's a bit of hope involved, I guess. But the one thing we were like, as long as it's just not quarter 3, even though if it was quarter 3, that means.
Although, once
in this
again,
context, it would have been like a massive update, but in this case,
I'm pretty sure they are like often slightly later than they promise on the roadmaps. Like they often do get a bit delayed. So even then, we could dip into quarter 3. But they might realise that maybe a 9-month season, maybe that's not a good idea. So they might braid themselves in as much as possible.
Right now, I want to. We haven't even gotten to the meat yet, but let's be honest. We don't need the. Well, we do need the meat. I just mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we could go on forever. But the fact that this roadmap hasn't been officially posted anywhere is really a bug in me. Because it means there's no, apart from us, and obviously the video has got quite a few views, but not a lot compared to the player base. There's no one, I wouldn't say to hold accountable, but they haven't actually set the expectation yet. Most people don't know when Season 4 is coming. Like, a massive minority, like a severe minority of people are aware of Season 4 in any capacity. Because it's just hidden away at the moment for some reason, and I think that's because there was no. It would have been the Steam page would have been cluttered if they posted it yesterday, or Wednesday even. And I think maybe they're waiting till next week to announce that Season 4 is on the way. But
it would probably be a pretty good. And this is slightly tangential, but they have a soft deadline now in place, a very very soft. But a present deadline. They need to now add that to the pass in game. Like they need to put in like around 3 months or whatever it is, right? Just like on the top of the
problem
pass.
Is, I think those things, those like timers, don't work for people unless they are exact, and it can't be exact until they've actually got the release date.
I guess, yeah.
So they probably shouldn't do that, only because I don't think anyone's ever put a timer in a game, and it's like it couldn't be a timer at the moment. What's it going to say? Like 3 months?
Yeah,
I guess.
And then it would be like 2 months, and it would be like 1 month, and then by then you'd probably actually be able to have like the point in time. So then they'd change it to that.
Yeah.
It would hold them slightly more accountable, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's not that they necessarily need to be held accountable, but they should be able to be held accountable. So
I think it's not even like
to see and judge or give their thoughts.
Yeah, and it's not even like being held accountable. I think they just need to hold themselves accountable, because they have said, and this like right, they have had obviously the running gag,
do they?
They have had the running gag of the Longbeard freighter dropping stuff, and like, haha, funny, they do that over and over again. But they have also...
Mission Control said, I actually can't remember what he said. It's just like, I'm going to kill that driver or something.
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah, like the Deep Rock has had that running gag going in it, but Ghost Ship has had a running gag as well with all these seasons, being that once again we couldn't hold ourselves back. Like that, they have said that every single time. Like anytime anything has occurred during these holiday events or anything has been released, they're like, we couldn't hold ourselves back. So all I'm asking is for them to try. And I feel like if they put a soft timer, it might help them hold themselves back a little bit.
Well, I think the sort of the placement of the like the release window for Season 4 is almost them accounting for. So I guess it is them holding themselves accountable. It's accounting for the idea of them getting carried away, almost.
Yeah,
like, I mean, we've got time to get carried away, or at least this means that we don't have to squeeze it in any way. They sort of it's not really it's not restricting themselves. It's actually the opposite. Obviously, it's like we got carried away with the holiday events, and we're going to allow for that even in the context of the seasons. As in, we're still going to give ourselves the full time that we need, because we got carried away, and that means season 4 is going to be later than you might have expected. Yeah, it just still kind of annoys me that basically no one knows that. And you get people on Reddit asking, "You got any news on season 4?" And it's just like, "Yeah, man, it's going to be June." It's like, oh dear.
Yeah. It's not surprising. And I think while it is going to negatively affect people's opinions on season 4, especially likely Axis Kronos's, because
Axis Kronos is a changed man.
I don't think he's a changed man.
I don't think he is either.
I just think he got what he wanted, so he's happy.
What a loser.
Yeah.
Welcome on the podcast, though.
Yeah, we like spicy takes on this podcast, so I think it'll be a welcome guest.
I said before that I would be comfortable actually inviting people once we get to 500, but that would be as in messaging them. But right now, I would say I'd love to have Axis Kronos on the podcast if he's watching. I just want to say that, but obviously this isn't a personal message.
No,
but it's still there. As if you wanted to, you could contact us.
And if anyone else, any other huge deep book channels, just watch our video. We're not going to turn you down.
Except Ron.
Oh, that's not nice.
No. The reason I say that is because, as far as I know, he doesn't. Actually, no, it's not even him. I shouldn't even say that. Most people don't really talk about what's going on in the game. The only people who do this. I mean, Axis Kronos does, but Reapy Ron makes so much content, but none of it is. He didn't even seem to acknowledge the fact that there was an anniversary. And you know what? Maybe that's why Ghost Ship doesn't like him. That's why he just doesn't seem to. I haven't watched his content, but none of the thumbnails or titles of any of his multiple videos per day address current events in the game.
He is a content farm, and I don't inherently mean that as an insult, but it's just the fact that
he's making his job, and it looks like he's working hard, and it's
but it's literally he is. If you're someone that plays Deep Rock and you need an unstoppable flow of builds and gameplay footage, and that's it, and just I guess it's advice from someone that's a lot higher level than you, then Reapy One is just your most reliable source of that. I just cannot stand his content, and that's where we stand on that. But honestly, if he wanted to come on, I would be sure to talk about it, because it would be very interesting to actually pull out some of his thoughts.
I want to get his opinions on the game. Yeah. He doesn't seem to share opinions. He seems to be very
neutral.
Neutral. The type of content he does is just very gameplay focused and offering things for people to use in the game. I suppose it's all builds.
Yeah, how is this singular overclock viable? And there's an entire 20-minute video on it, and it's well, fucking hell, man. And he gets 3K views, and it's well, you can't argue with the numbers there. But the point is this is not a Reapy One.
That's the thing. I would like those actual opinions on everything that's going on. Because even the bigger Axis Kronos, he didn't address this. He didn't address the roadmap at all.
No,
it's just kind of weird. People, there's this argument that Ghost Ship can almost get away with certain things because a lot of people just aren't that bothered. They don't think about this stuff all that much. I mean, we kind of have to think about it because it is what we think about. But now we do have ammunition, but it's ammunition to talk about that most people haven't seen. I mean, I would assume a lot of people watching this have seen it because it's one of our videos. Shows the roadmap. A lot of people have seen that, so I would actually assume that everyone who's watching this has actually seen the roadmap. And
if not, go watch it. Solar Channel.
You don't have to watch it. You don't even have to watch the video.
It's true, but we are basically going through it at a snail's pace, I'd argue, considering currently we have gotten end of quarter 2 2023 and season 4 done. I think that's the title is about all we've gotten through so far. But yeah, we tend to get through everything here. And
Yeah, because I've got some notes, but before we get to I guess the next thing we should do is actually just address the words of the thumbnail of the roadmap, and then what it's actually
yeah,
saying straight up.
I
Aside
think
from the
this
date, because we've been through that. Yeah.
this is my most interesting. Right, I love the new enemies thing, but I think the thing that interests me
We'll
most
go through one bit at a time.
is I know, but the new season, how fucking nothing it is. A themed season with season challenges and season events, and it's not robots. That is the vaguest it has ever been. Right? Last season, it was there was something coming towards Hoxie's, or not Hoxie's, coming towards fucking Kreus, a parabolic trajectory, right? It was a hint towards what can be expected. We had no idea what was coming towards Hoxie's, but that was the kind of thing. This has nothing of the sorts. It is saying that there is going to be a theme with events and challenges and that, and it's not robots because that's going to be a gag at this point.
I think I mentioned it on the in my video where it feels like they actually just edited out a bunch of text from the previous one. They didn't even feel like they made a new graphic from the season 3 roadmap, because you have "and it's not robots." It's in the season 3 one, and this time around, how relevant is that really? When what it should be saying is actually that it's not rock.
The thing is,
saying it's not from outer space. That's the
thing
point.
is,
if we know it's not robots, no one was expecting it to be robots again, because we've already had not robots.
It's really funny though. It's just really funny because first of all, I think that does mean that it could be Rockpox, right? I mean that's something that
we'll get. I agree, and we'll get into that. There's a lot. It doesn't actually completely lock that off at all.
But it's not. I don't remember. Do you remember what it was for season 2? Do you remember what season 2 ones was?
So, oh god, see, this is getting into sort of all the stuff, all of my notes about things. But the season 2 roadmap didn't explain that it was going to be robots again.
Right.
It wasn't. It was just all about the new weapons, and it was literally as vague as this, except it obviously brought up the new weapons. I should find it though, because I might be somewhat wrong. But I remember it not stating that robots were going to be coming back again.
Right. So currently, there is just as much reason to expect. Right. It would be fair to assume we're getting a Rockpox Part 2 if they didn't actively mention and demonstrate that they took a lesson from season 2. And I don't think they've explicitly said what that lesson is. But so it would be on the table. Rockpox season 2, or Rockpox Part 2 rather, is on the table, but I would argue it is not the most likely thing, because it doesn't seem like it's something they want to do for I wouldn't say monetary reasons, but it is kind of that. Season 2, and I do mean season 2 this time, the Rivals Part 2 was, I wouldn't say it's not inherently financial failure, but no one played it, right? It did not bring any significant amount of people back to the game. People did not come back and replay the game. Not many people, not enough. Not how much they expected, I assume. Considering season 1 was huge, tons of people played it, tons of people bought it. Season 3, fucking record breaking, right? Tons of people bought it, tons of people played it. Season 2 was none of those things. Season 2 was barely a peak. And they learned something from that. And they have stated it 2 separate times now, I think, that season 2 was something that they needed to figure out what they did wrong on. And I think it is very likely that what they could perceive as what they did wrong, and what I think would be a valid thing to take away from it, is that doing a part 2 was a bad idea.
I think there's actually that's true, but I think there's something else specific about season 2 that caused that, and I'm not gonna actually bring that up yet. I'm gonna get through the words. So yeah, obviously it's not robots. We don't know what the theme is, apart from that it's not robot. Apart from that it's not robots. Now obviously leaves a window open for other things, and it's just oversight. I don't think it is oversight though. I think they're probably deliberately leaving the door open for Rockbox.
Yeah, I think they you know they might, because I feel like what we could get is a couple more rock pox, right? Like just like maybe the mini boss rock pox or a boss rock pox like we're expecting to fill out the rock pox a little bit more, and then the other things that we'll get to later a little bit with the other enemies. That I could see that as being the season, basically just filling out like all enemy types other than the robots. Because to be honest, they're pretty good. They're pretty filled out. They're pretty done as far as enemies are concerned. But yeah, that would be. I think that would be fine. But I feel like they may also not want to do Rockbox Part 2 because Part 2s aren't the best thing in the world. And I think I want to elaborate on this later, right, if we're coming back to it. But Part 2s aren't bad, but Part 2 straight after Part 1's kind of is. People were done with the robots. They didn't need more robots. Meanwhile, if they'd done Part 1 of the robots and then come back later on, it would have been a lot better.
This might be spoiling what I'm going to say a little bit, but I don't think the problem with season 2 might not actually been that it was a sequel to the Rivals. It was actually it was just set up to be a sequel to season 1 inherently, because of the weapons, and it was always just going to be trying to live up to season 1, in every way, and. Yeah, I'm actually not going to elaborate anymore because we need to get through this. So, the next subheading is a new performance pass.
Yeah, as always.
I said it in the video. Just like these aren't roadmaps. Like this is the DRG roadmap now. So like, okay, yeah, I guess it is. This is what they do, but it's not a roadmap. It just isn't. It's barely even a season 4 like outline. Right, it's just reminding people what seasons have in them. It's just
and if this didn't say enough in the Q&A, they also elaborate. I mean, well, first of all, I guess we should say, as always, a brand new performance pass and cosmetic tree filled with hats, beards, skins, and other goodies. But it is literally exactly as it always has been.
It's almost this is like an element of like they just want to remind people that they're not changing their ways in any way.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing there is the cosmetic tree. They're still doing the cosmetic tree. It's just like, wow. I'm not surprised.
Yeah,
but...
in the Q&A, they did. Someone asked a weird question that they couldn't quite answer, so they basically just stated this pass is going to be exactly the same as it always has been. We have found a formula that we like, and we're going to stick to it. Which, to be honest, is a very fucking good formula. I think the passes are one of the best passes in gaming.
With the cosmetics types that we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all there's nothing unique about this to season 4. Apart from that, it's just in these departments it is the same, but later. If you want to be pessimistic. Anyway. So yeah, I guess this is the juiciest.
This
part.
is the meat. This is the meat and spuds of this thing.
Meat and the spuds.
Yeah. It's the only thing we can really talk about. New enemies, and they.
Well, I want to point out this is already like I guess for a lot of people this might already come across as like obviously. Yeah. And that's something that I'm going to elaborate on once we got through it. The reason why that might not be the right way to look at this. It might not be, and obviously there's going to be new enemies. And I'll explain why. We've had disturbing reports of previously unseen fauna down in the caves of Hoxie's. There's been no visual confirmation yet, but whatever it is, it's hostile and aggressive. I want to point out a stupid thought that I had when I first saw it. I forgot the difference between flora and fauna. Because they're very similar words.
I wish they had dabbled with putting both there, to be honest with you. I'm still up for having more plant-based enemies. That's something I have like a small little passion in my heart for. But yeah. This is something we'll just get out of the way. The devs, like Mikkel and Soren, I think it is, right? They kind of commented that this isn't referring to like more new enemies, if you know what I mean, like the new more rock pox or anything. This is literally referring to more types of what we have, like more enemies. I think the words they put it, more enemies in the natural pool. which is exactly what this game fucking needed, because
Yeah,
the rivals
reads,
and the rock box were, yeah, it's how it reads, and it's what they said. Right, the rivals and the rock box were not more enemies in the natural pool. They were not that. They were new enemies, but they weren't natural in pools and just doing normal missions. But this is what this new enemies is. It's going to be enemies that you're doing a basic ass mission, like a 4 egg hunt with no warnings or anything, and you will bump into these new enemies. That's what this is going to be, and I'm fucking hyped for it.
It is like, I guess you have. I don't know how accurately you're quoting them, but taking it on face value of what it says, of what the words say. Previously unseen, I think that does technically imply not Rockpox, because even though you could have new Rockpox enemies,
and further down in the caves of Hoxie's as well. They're coming from down in the caves.
Stuff that we haven't seen from Hoxie's. That is what it says, essentially. I don't know why hostile and aggressive is that important.
I feel like that's just a bit fluff.
But if you want to take it seriously, it could be like, this is because they're not optional. It's just because they're coming after you, and much like the rest of the enemies are.
But
much like the normal enemies are.
As mentioned, though, they are. I'm like 99% sure, and I'm 100% up for. They are just going to be in amongst normal swarms. There are going to be like just new variants of enemies, new types in different categories, like a new Macteria or a new shit like that, right? That will just occur normally. I guess and I am so thankful.
We have to wonder about is what is coming first in terms of the I guess the theming of the season. Is this once again, is the theme coming first? Or are the enemies coming first, then the theme? Because this is going to be one of the things I'm going to get into. I think
this does feel like more of the season 2, right?
One of the biggest positives here is that it's not the theme that's coming first, which means that we're not necessarily going to see like a unifying factor for all these enemies, which I guess also gets into like basic speculation about what kind of enemies we're getting. It's like, is it going to be focused on one species? Is it going to be like, are they going to dip the toes into like every species? Personally, I want to see
maybe add some more.
I want to see literally. I want to see a bit of everything except Glyphids. Kind of.
Glyphids are so full at this point that there's not many other spaces. All I can think of for Glyphids is like just different. Like, first of all, cave variants, but they don't seem quite open to that idea. But second of all, like, more wardens. That's really what I see for Glyphids.
I see a charger, an enemy that just runs at you with like a big horn on its head, and it probably stuns itself when it's done. If you like jump out the way, it can like run into a wall and it would just get stunned. So like a charger, and different types of wardens. Absolutely.
Maybe a couple new types of spitters. I'm not sure where you would want to do that, but like, I don't know, like
a mortar spitter.
I feel like there really isn't much room. Maybe like a floor-based ranged enemy for Glyphids, because that's something that Rockpox
over the horde, which means it takes cover behind its enemy, behind its friends,
which is why
which expose themselves, you know.
Yeah, because most enemy types in this game are quite barren. Like they're quite they kind of have like the archetypes, and that's about it in them, and some of them not even that. Right, that Mactera, they have obviously your grunt, trijaw, your grunt, your swarmer, what's the spawn, right? Spawn. Mactera spawn, Trijaw, and Brundle. They're your slashers, guards, and grunts. And then you have like your Praetorian being your goo bomber. And that's like it for Mactera, right? Yeah. That's like literally that's it. And Mactera has so many more spaces for them to fill, like a swarmer type Mactera. arguably that's Nadosite, but that's its own species. But I still think it feels the same role gameplay wise.
Like Flyer, it's a swarmer type flying enemy, right? And
Yeah.
then, like the breeder is the flying brood nexus.
Yeah, like there's definitely an argument there, but I think either way, I think there's definitely some more slots that can be filled. Yeah, Mac Terror Warden, I'd be terrified. I think Mac Terror Warden, they can't get more defense. I didn't make them get more defense.
I mean, directly, it's a bad idea. They shouldn't get more. It should be something else.
It would either have to be like speed or damage, and either way, very deadly.
Speed would be fine. Speed would better be fine because that just makes them harder to hit when they're moving.
Yeah, but they already kind of are that, but still, yeah, something along those lines would be interesting. But even still, yeah, those are some obvious kind of gaps that can be filled. But with not grunts, like Glyphids, they are so full. Glyphids have multiple of every type, multiple bosses, I think actually not multiple mini bosses. That's probably an area that could do with some more. Like some oppressor tier Glyphids could be filled up a little bit, but then like so you have to get like proper creative to add more Glyphids, which I think would be interesting to do, and especially since Glyphids are by far the most I know, and Glyphids are by far the most iconic.
The mortar idea is like it's like a ground, it's a ranged enemy that sticks on the ground, but you would implement some unique pathfinding where it actually tries to stay behind like guards and oppressors specifically. It's always going to line itself up
maybe with them. It could do stuff like that, but even then I think it might be a bit more current, like because this is something that I found really interesting about the Rockbox is that even though they're a grunt, they basically stop when they get near to you and then start range attacking you, and that could be a ranged mortar type Glyphid that once they get close enough, while normal Glyphids will continue running towards you, this one would stop and start aiming you up. That kind of thing. Obviously, they could get more advanced, like what you're saying, but I think even just what they already have in the Rockbox ones is enough for a
drop from the ceiling on top of you.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think as much as thing is, grabber type enemies are like universally hated, but also like very loved. Right, like everyone is like, oh fuck cave leeches and fuck bacteria grabbers and fuck the nemesis, but they're also like the coolest, most iconic, most fun things to go up against. I mean, nemesis a bit less.
I have an idea of like something very. It would sound very trivial because it sounds
not exactly trawlers. Actually, people just hate trawlers.
Yeah, because they suck. It sounds exactly like Web Splitter, but you would have because it'd be an alternate version of it. It's the Glyphid Web Spinner. And he essentially has the same pathfinding as them, except he tries to position himself above you, and he drops down on a rope and tries to like bring you up, like throw you.
I would honest to God, like that would be
it's like a mobile cave leech, basically.
Yeah. On a very serious note, though, that would be a step too far for me and probably quite a few other arachnophobes. That would be like.
I know that's exactly what I was thinking. Though you look up, you see this spider just coming down on top of you.
Yeah, and then he just fucking grabs you and ties you in a web, and like I feel like with that one you may be able to break free, right? Because of its mobile nature, it needs to be a little bit more forgiving.
Tyler, you enter like this. Maybe you can even keep it first person, but you enter this animation where he starts like fucking wrapping you up.
Yeah. He's like, on your head, and you could like
arachnophobes.
Yeah, that would be fucking horrific.
Like in the Hobbit, the spiders when they're spinning around and they're running up the dwarves.
On a very serious note, I'm going to get this out of the way because I think we're going to come back to this because even though because this is the meat and we're going through just like
it would end
things
up like
overall.
Hanging you from the ceiling, but you could break out but you would still fall. You could break out.
On a very genuine note, I want to, and this could be a podcast, this could be something else, but I want to just you and me just to brainstorm like 50 fucking enemy ideas.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to do, Tyler.
Yeah, because we did it with the grenades, and we're going to have to do it with these.
We almost did it just then, but I was like, hold on, because you're right. And this is what we're going to get into in a moment about the enemies being actually taking up that slot. This is what we're going to be speculating about, and we're going to do a full-on speculation podcast. I don't know when. I would want to do it like I'm not sure. Not next week, obviously. It would be closer, but I would still like to get it done before we get teasers as well.
Yeah. Before teasers.
Definitely.
But we'll probably still throw a lot more things before today, since as mentioned, we're going to be talking about it a lot. But I feel like we might try and talk more about why this is an amazing thing than inherently ideas about them.
So, do you think there's a very small chance of them being a new species? Because I would find
there isn't a need for new species, but I could definitely welcome some. But I think this would also be...
It's very possible is because if you look at the previous times we've got new enemies, you do get sort of random stuff thrown in, like the Naya controller gets its own species. Yeah. And it's not necessarily the main focus, it's like the branching out the Nayaka family. But still, it would be very exciting if there's a whole brand that was native to Hoxies that we haven't seen yet. That would be equally enticing.
I think, honestly...
that would be much more easy to theme around the season. Like,
This is an idea that we've talked about before, like 2 times now. I think at this point on stream and on a podcast. But Other is a gold mine for species. Like you need to just start pulling from Other and making them their own species. And I think that should be an end goal for this new season. There shouldn't be an Other. Because think about it this way, right? If you're going for the whole naturalist species of Hoxies, there shouldn't be an Other. That's not how species works. That's not how nature works. Stop that fucking bullshit, right? Species are species. They have their own genome and they should be classified as such in the thing. Even if it's literally only one of them, which there are plenty of already, right? Corlock's the only one in Corlock. Betsy's the only one in Corlock. Fucking what? Betsy's the only one in like Automaton. Obviously, they're kind of specific, but even I think Nayaka Trawler, isn't that its own one?
Hold on, because Corlock has its own section, right?
Yeah, it's not another. It's just in its own thing.
The Corlock annoys me though. Do you know what the Corlock annoys me because they gave its own species section, but they still kept it as only one entry, even though there's 3 of them.
Yeah, it's dumb as hell. I think this would be a very
obviously we might not get more Corlocks because I feel like Corlock is a very specifically flora-based species. You're not going to get mobile ones,
which I want more of, obviously, but. But maybe not now. This is fauna. But like, I think this would be a very good time. And I'm honestly, because I realized something, they really do notice Reddit posts and they do actually seriously look at them. And I really want to put this idea out there. But like, turning Others into their own categories, obviously because they should be, but then using them to create more things. Like, I am such a huge fucking fan of the Mobula being a generalized term for like enemy types that help you move around the cave. I'm such a fucking fan of that idea, and I think you could be broken down to so many other things, right? Like holy orders, loot bugs, whatever that kind of fucking thing is, they should all be part of the same family. They should just be this.
I think it does get into this weird sort of the semantics of what the words mean and their placement in the names of the creatures. Like, because I think holy is a species name. But I also think Mobula is as well. But I actually agree with you on this. I didn't agree with you on this about the Cave Angel thing at first because my initial reading of when we got the Cave Angels was Mobula because it doesn't look like, obviously it's not a real word, so I assumed it was like a species name. So I read it as Mobula because that made more sense in my head. But if you do read it as Mobula, you realise that was intentional because Mobula is sort of drawn from mobility, which sort of implies that its name comes from it helping you actually move around.
Yeah, because think about it, the names are decided by.
I agree but the problem is, I don't know if it would be. The reason I'm on the fence about it is because I don't know if it would be a retcon or not, because I don't know if that is its species name or another type of classification. But I think they could easily, even if it's not a even if it is a retcon, I mean, they could still just do that.
No one would notice.
Exactly.
No.
They can still make that mean something else. It doesn't have to be a species name.
Yeah, some of my ideas do fall into retcon because I would want the NATO site cave cruiser to be a Mobula, but that is obviously it's a NATO site, right? So that's one issue. Another thing is I want Hooli's loot bugs to be a Hoolie. Basically, it would be a Hoolie loot bug. I don't think you'd just add. I don't think you'd add the Hoolie to the loot bug, but they're part of the same family. Like an ancient type of creature that eats minerals. One ate normal minerals, the other one's ate like golden nitra, right? And that's how you get the 2 hoolies and loot bugs, right? That kind of thing. And I hope that if they did that, that would give them so many more ideas. Not to mention, cave leech would then have its own section, right? So you could have other types of leeches, floor leeches, wall leeches, some shit like that, right? That would stem there. You could have a leech type family.
I still think the cave vines in the rad zone are like fucking cave leeches. Or they were.
Yeah, like neutered ones.
I fucking hate. I hate the wall. You know, how often do you think about the wall eyes? The wall eyes.
The wall eyes. They fall in the same kind of category as the like the worms, the maggots in the tree biome. How could you? This game was so close to being perfect, and then you added nightmare fuel. No, fuck you.
I agree that it's nightmare fuel, but obviously corpses are a bit weird. But in the context of the wall eyes, I think the wall eyes are fucking awesome. I love shit.
Yeah, wall eyes are awesome.
I love shit that actually creeps me out because I'm not easily creeped out. So. And I always forget about them because I forget, and the reason I do is because they just become part of the wall until sometimes you just happen to notice them, and then you remember that they actually follow you.
Yeah.
And there was one time, very recently, because I remembered them recently, until like a couple of days ago, they had just become part of the walls. I noticed them again, but the reason I took note of them as a thing is because there was like a little sort of outcropping. Like sometimes you just get a small opening that isn't attached to like the cave at all, or like it's attached by like a very small opening, right? This was this tiny cave, like in like the hollow bowl, you get like little red sugar pockets. Sometimes you get generation like that, but it's kind of hidden because it just happened by accident. So there was like this one bit on the rad zone where like I saw a little hole that just wasn't tied to like the overall cave at all, and I dug it, and there was like one walleye in there, and it was just looking at me. Like, I thought I wasn't meant to do this. I feel like I made a mistake. So yeah, walleyes are fucking sick. I mean, I'd love to know more about them, but I don't know why we would. They're just. But what could they possibly be? Where's their brains? What are they? Are they just eyes? Are they plants? I guess they're plants, right? They must be plants. But they look like eyes. I actually like that idea more. That the plants look like eyes.
Yeah, and I feel like that kind of stuff. I think you could definitely start filling out. Like, because once again, I think this would be a really good time because also, and this is something we'll get to with other undecided stuff. They like kind of doing other, like doing some weird other thing, right? Like in the last season, they added the miner's manual to your room, right? And I feel like maybe this season they could update the miner's manual with some actual legitimate good categorizing and relevant information and enemies that they missed out and stuff along those lines, like like Cursite enemies, shit like that. Although I feel like they should kind of come under their own thing now. I think Ebonite and Cursite should come under the same thing and their own category, like Rockpox and Rockpox, because they're the same thing.
Yeah, you're actually right. For a moment I was like, hold on a minute, but because the thing with Ebonites is that they are only glyphids. I think Cursite, I guess, is like
it's it's but then Cursites, as I mentioned, Cursites are more interesting and more dynamic than fucking Rockpox. Like there's more to them than fucking Rockpox, which says a lot considering how shitty Cursite is.
Because you have the Praetorian, right? You got your little tank. You got Acid Spitter and
Acid Spitter. Yeah, it's a really cool, diverse selection.
That should have been the template for Rockpox, plus the grunt. You should have had I guess if they made the grunt suspicious.
Rockpox has grunt and swarmer, but it's just
in the context of Rockpox, they could have made the grunts have different pathfind. They could have just gone up on the walls anyway and just spat at you if they wanted.
Maybe,
and then, but it's still missing a flyer.
Yeah, but even so, though, it's there is a lot of potential, and that potential by actively interacting, because I really need to I need to make a Reddit post on this because I want them to see this. By actively interacting with the miner's manual, they will notice holes which they could fill with enemies and interesting families and that. If each thing had its own family, it doesn't matter if there's only one of it in it. If that is a family there should not be another. That's what I'm saying. There should not be another. In a bestiary fucking thing, if you're supposed to look at these things and, oh yeah, that's a genome, these are all the
some of it
families.
is,
Other isn't a thing. That's not how nature works.
Some of it is some of it is because of what isn't in the bestiary. And this is because they have this difficulty putting things in the bestiary that aren't creatures, even though sometimes they do, like the Stabbervine. But the reason why the Stabbervine is in other is because it's the only enemy that the red vines are. But the red vines as a whole, there's a lot of different things there. I mean, actually, there's not that many. The only other thing is like the fawn pot, and that doesn't really do anything.
Well, I feel like
the red vines themselves. Actually,
and
that could be. I want to see them do more with them.
I wouldn't
guys.
like this, but if they for that kind of stuff, those kind of situations, they don't bother familying them, but they just put them in a pool of biome specific enemies, right? For like the other, right? It would be like hollow bow enemies, and it would have the those spiky fucks, and it would have the flesh eaters, whatever the fucking maggots are called, right? And I'm not sure if there's really anything else. I mean, they could add the goosacks or like acorns, right? I mean, the acorns would technically be something like interesting things like that, but I think they don't want to fill up the bestiary too much with irrelevant stuff. Like not anything that isn't like something you would need to know how to kill.
Yeah.
But it is something that maybe add an extra section to it. So like there's a non-cluttered version that's actually helpful to players, and then a slightly fuller version that if you like pull out a panel or something that allows you to look into stuff.
The person who would do that isn't on staff. I don't think they have someone who is just there to just.
Wasn't there someone that actively wanted to fill out a lot more lore in the game? I think he was probably more like he wanted to talk about Carl, all right, and shit like that. But if he was a real G,
wasn't a writer, though. He probably just wanted to do that. But he's probably like a programmer or something, It's like,
maybe.
We're not gonna.
But so is the voice
we don't want
actors.
you to do this because we don't want you to do this because we need you to fucking code shit. So we're gonna have to shut this down, and there's no one else who can do it though. Unfortunately.
Yeah, but I don't know.
If only there was someone who could just write for you.
Yeah, the thing is it because obviously they don't like hard lore, but I think stuff like that is perfectly within the area of shit that can get filled out. Just natural things, because that would also, you would have a lot of like parts of it that would be open ended, like you would have like wall eyes, and it would be really mysterious, wouldn't it? It would be like only occurring in the radiation exclusion zone. We have no idea what the purpose of these eyes are, but they seem to be able to see through them because they will follow you through the cave and shit like that. And so it would like, kind of state the obvious in a mysterious way for stuff like that. Or for something like the acorn, it would be like, this is the seed of the great tree.
Yeah, but that's why we don't have that. It's because that probably exists in universe, but there's only stuff that we get our hands on. Is the stuff that first of all that I guess that DRG knows a lot about, but also the stuff that is useful to players. Everything else is sort of the problem is everything else is observations that you can make. You can almost fill up that other part of the minus manual in your head, which is why it's not an important endeavor. Even though it would be cool to see, but it's just like, especially with something like the wall eyes. If it's like stating the obvious, but it's still mysterious. That's all we get out of them. We can look at them and say all the things that would be in that entry. And also say that we don't know a lot about them as well. It wouldn't actually be useful, and I think that's actually fair. I actually kind of like the idea of making your own observations as well. Maybe if there was a way we could write stuff down, maybe I don't know, an in-game journal would actually be pretty neat. But it's in that you can fill out if you want. But yeah, I mean that was sidetracked a little bit, but that wasn't brainstorming new enemies. But still, that was not. But
no, I will have to make a Reddit post on that though, because it will just help them a lot with these new enemies. If there was new families and the other section just didn't exist in the bestiary, because fucking stupid ass section. Like, that was hell. So yeah, I might expect a post talking about all the ways the BCO sucks ass and how to fix it, and hopefully not put it in a way that gets it downvoted.
Vitis rubra. That's Latin for red vine.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then, as mentioned, there is other undecided stuff. Yeah. This is the other part, as mentioned. We'll be adding lots of extras, as usual. We are constantly experimenting and trying out new stuff, so all is not decided yet. But we are really excited about Jetpacks, which really comes out of fucking nowhere.
A jetpack, you say? A jet?
Yeah.
Pack.
I just don't want to bite, man. I just don't want to bite.
Yeah, but why? Yeah, see. Oh well.
Adding it. Other than there is now a new feature of summoning down something to be used temporarily for a single objective, or an arbitrary way of putting it is that.
This is what it has to be.
So there's just a new mechanic that they could easily use jetpacks for. So while they have never been able to find a use for, and they never felt that it was warranted, now with this new mechanic, there is a way. But I don't.
What the hell would that be, though?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I mean, you don't really need jetpacks in this game, right? Like, obviously people want it, but the grappling hook is essentially a jetpack. And by that I mean it's not that at all, but it's essentially as liberating of a movement ability as a jetpack could be. Driller and Engineer have perfectly viable ways of going horizontal. And fucking Gunner would very much like a jetpack, I'd imagine, but still, it's very weird.
Yeah,
because
that's
I think
that's why it sort of titillates that part of the brain that sort of wants more tools, because it's hard to actually see the other use. Apart from adding variety to your arsenal, which is always a valid thing to do. So
I think it's interesting how,
doesn't it?
I didn't think until literally just now that it could have been an alternate traversal. I didn't think about that at all, and it's probably because it's that shouldn't be worth talking about.
No,
like it's just never going to be that.
It's like it isn't because of what they've said, but it's like. It's actually the only thing that makes sense, right? Because it's very difficult to conceive a use for a jetpack in a mission, except for, I guess, it's probably not that hard to devise a task where every member of the team needs that level of mobility. It's possible that whatever it is, a scout, like a solo scout, could do without needing to use the jetpack, but maybe it's a situation where you only get one to share anyway.
It's something that jetpack allows vertical mobility while having your hands be free, maybe something like that. So, like because like with a grappling hook, it's going to be risky, and you need to descend safely as well, which Scout can't inherently do.
If I were to try and conceive of a task that fits that, it would immediately go to something that creates a massive high roofed room. Right, but you have to fight things that do not come near the ground.
I didn't think fight things. I was thinking just something at least I was thinking recall, or the recon things. You got hack, right, and that's always in annoying places. Put into the terrain generation of a meteorite, so it would just be things that you have to interact with in a giant funnel upwards. And something like that. And you'd have to go up and down and grab things.
What it allows for is using these sort of the vertical tunnels as an actual base, a game space. Have them have a function. Well, not a function. Have something that you do there. Whether there's a specific combat you need to role you need to perform, or this is a situation where it's actually something trying to get out of boxes. Going the other way. Coming from below,
maybe there's something in the layer. There's there's the middle layer of hard rock. Maybe there's something in there that something is carved its way to or around or something, and you have to fly up a hole to go interact with it. I don't know. It really. It's too vague, and it also their response when they saw it was so confusing as well. They were like, "Oh, we weren't meant to show this, or we didn't want to show this," and "Oh, this isn't a thing," but it might be. But it was it's such a weird thing. Like, it's really a fucking curveball, and it's like the accurate way, but it's just like out of nowhere. No one saw it coming. No one knows what it means. Why they threw it in the first place? Like, it's just. I feel like it's just like a distraction. It's like a goose. It's like, go chase that while we do other things.
You fool! See, we are chasing the goose, but
we know it's a goose. We just still want it.
Exactly.
Sorry to do.
Exactly. That makes us actually stupid, I think.
Yeah, I think knowing something bad and doing it anyway is often worse than not. But also, I don't think it is. But whatever. But yeah, it's just a very, very weird thing to just kind of tack on at the end when clearly they haven't decided much. Like, this season seems really they don't like, I don't know. I think we can expect. I honestly, I am sensing good vibes from other undecided stuff. That I'm sensing vibes that we might get something meaty from that.
But it's well, I think that category pertains to things that we've seen before. I think I think that might have been like the cleaning tools, maybe.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing though, is that it probably does, but also not really, because that pertained to the actual season thing itself. But I mean, you know, they're not just going to add jetpacks randomly, right? If they add jetpacks, it's going to be to do with the season theme. And if they don't know what that is, then that makes jetpacks make even less sense. So maybe the fact that they put jetpacks there, if that does mean anything, they do know what they're doing for the season. They're just not revealing it in any way, shape, or form. So it says a lot, but God knows what it is saying. And I really need to piss. Oh, good. And I think, we covered. I wouldn't say we covered surface level of all of it so far, but we covered all of it. You now know what the season pass is bringing. Although you could have just looked it up and read it for like 30 seconds. But
I haven't actually seen many people repost it.
No, it's I don't know. It's very weird. This game has felt very odd since like seasons. It's just been very curious. But I think we're gonna have a quick break. We'll come back and we'll likely go in more depths of the new enemies. Realistically,
take this opportunity to go for piss, because we're going to be silent for the next 3 minutes. No.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if people did that? They put the piss break in for like other people. It's like your piss break. It's in the viewers' break as well.
Can't I just like pause it?
No, it's like a movie. It's an intermission. It's like...
That's a bit weird, but yeah. For you, it's going to be a second. For us, it's going to be 2 seconds, because I'm going to piss myself right here.
All right,
we're back.
We took a piss.
Yeah.
Just the one.
Just together, we took a singular piss. I transferred my piss over to Harry, and he did it for me.
That's the future.
Right. Thing is, I mean, as mentioned, there's not that much. Right, there is a lot to talk about, but there isn't much to also talk about. Like, season 3, we had what the fuck is coming towards Hoxie's on the season, but we did not have that this season. So there goes like an entire podcast on it.
Hold on. First of all, you're wrong. Second of all, we haven't talked about what we know isn't going to be in season 4.
Perks. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
And why that isn't... Because do you want to know why I like this so much? It wasn't like it wasn't a situation where it's just like, we're not doing perks.
We don't see the value in it. Like, screw that noise.
It was actually way better than that.
It was
good.
Yeah, there is so much we want to do with perks that we can't get it done for season 4. Basically,
yeah, I said, because I explained in the video how I think their development is, the way they do things is still very reactionary, which means and people only started coming up with the idea of wanting new perks kind of really after season 3, because that's when the community's like sort of head turned to, well, what do we need now? And so
Yeah.
that means Perks come
What
out,
next?
which means it got put onto their minds, but which means it hasn't been like, it's not something that's been stewing for a very long time. It's a fairly recent development, which means
Yeah.
they probably looked into it and they realised, well, whatever we're going to do here, it can't. We don't have enough time for like it to be the next
I think
season.
it's worth mentioning though, Harry, that this is something we will be covering tomorrow in the Q&A, because that's when it was brought up. But I'm more than happy to talk about it now as well. But yeah, it is the fact that they because obviously, because I think this is what you put up, we were theorizing overclocks or perks. That was what we were expecting for the season because of equipment, right? We're like, equipment, what's next? Most other people thought this as well. Either one of those two, maybe both. Currently looking like neither. Not to say that they couldn't slip in the overclocks if they wanted to.
I just think
right?
the reason why I think they should is because that seems so self-explanatory, right? And that's the point, because you actually even weapons is more self-explanatory than this, right? Because you can't rework the concept of weapons. You can't rework weapons as a feature. They never have. The closest you get to that is the introduction of overclocks. But weapons are weapons. Individual weapons can get reworked, but as a game feature, they are extremely immovable, and that's because they don't ever need to be moved in any way. Grenades, you can say the same. Grenades is even more that, because they're just grenades. They're so singular in their existence. But perks is a system that is. It's more of a system.
Malleable as hell.
Weapons aren't a system. They're just your weapons. The perk system is much more of a system, and it's also much more malleable, and it's got a lot more elements to it. It was never going to be simple, and that's good, because it's the only thing in that department that can be reworked, which is why I think that when they touch perks, it's going to look more like a rework than anything else, even though they've done it before. The only reason they did it before is because it's also, like I said, it's the only thing in the category of equipment that can be reworked, because it exists as a system and nothing else. Everything else has models, which is actually a weird distinction to bring up, but I think it's actually important. Where perks are a massive part of your kit, but they're not accompanied by 3D models,
just need,
which is what makes the system, which is what makes it more of a system rather than pieces of equipment.
They have obviously they have the visual sticker, and they have sometimes on your screen you'll have a special effect, right? With dashing you've got the lines, right? That's essentially it. It's particle effects and icons is really the most that perks are, and obviously stat changes and numbers, but it is you don't need a shite ton of designing to go on with it. It really kind of comes down more onto the coders and the gameplay people than the art team to actually pump them out, if you know what I mean. With a new gun, you have all the new weapon frameworks, right, and colors and all that, and that is a lot of effort for everyone involved. But with perks, just a lot of effort for one side of the team, really, and some effort on the art side. But the point is that perks, just adding some wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world, but they intend on taking a step above that, which they needed to. And we'll get down their direct response tomorrow on the dev stream, the dev stream Q&A breakdown. I assume it's going to be called something along those lines. But yeah, it was an interesting response, because they brought up the surplus and how it's way more than they ever intended, really. And so, or it was more that they didn't want people to have to get all of the achievements, so they added a surplus, but they didn't realize how easy it was to get all the achievements, so it wasn't even that big of a deal if they did have to get everything. And so that's something they kind of pulled up on, which is interesting. So I'm not sure how far the perk rework, development, addition, subtraction is going to go, but it's going to be one of the most interesting things to look forward to in the future of the game, to be honest with you. which is why, while it's sad it's not occurring now, because I want things now, it is very good that it's going to get the time it deserves, instead of getting kind of realistically rushed out in the next couple months.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the thing. Overclocks are something that you cannot rush, as in it's impossible to rush. It's not that you shouldn't, but overclocks are so. It's not that they're so simple, but there's very little depth on an individual basis. They're almost like they're like perks for your weapons, almost, and that's what makes
yeah,
them so simple. Because like perks are a system because they're not actual like equipment items, but they're still an important part of your kit, and you can take multiple of them.
and they also have to like
Overclocks,
synchronize with themselves and all characters, right?
yeah,
There's a lot of complications that can occur there.
yeah. In terms of what overclocks do on like a when it comes to assets, is actually like the same as perks, except they're actually more out of the way because you're only going to have one overclock per weapon, and you're only ever going to have two weapons on you at a given time.
Yeah,
Which is why I think, and it's not the kind of system when it comes to how overclocks themselves work that you would ever need to rework. It's like it sort of combines the principles of perks and weapons. Whereas like you're never going to rework the idea of weapons, much like you're never going to rework the idea of overclocks. It's on an individual basis that overclocks would get reworked or
yeah.
changed. Which is why it's a very simple addition that would never overshadow the themed content.
Yeah.
Unlike weapons.
And it wouldn't be anything that people were against you just slipping in either. Like I do think, as much as, and we'll get a lot more into this later, that new enemies is just as valuable as new equipment, because I would argue it will impact your experience down in the caves similar, if not at least like superior to at least the grenades, right? That if you slapped on some overclocks as well, nobody could argue with that season's content, right? A new overclock for every weapon, spicing things up a bit, and new enemies down in the cave, spicing up even more. The game will feel fresh, very fresh if you do both. I think the enemies is still good and enough, but I don't see there's any reason not to do overclocks as well if they have some prepared, which they know. I know they do somewhat.
Yeah, see, I guess the problem I have with that is because like the perks thing is actually the good of this, but they have this tendency to not touch something unless it's going to be a major focus. But the problem is overclocks will never feel right as a major focus. They only really fit sort of being they only really fit as like a sidelined equipment addition.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so perfect. It's so perfect. But it feels like they're waiting for it to be the thing to focus on, but it's never going to work as the thing to focus on, which is why they just need to just give us what they have as soon as they can, and sort of get out the way what they've got, and then sort of then you can just wait. Because I think, especially after just the very initial idea of overclocks being a system that they would gradually expand upon. I mean, that was long since abandoned. I just think this overall sensation for me that we're kind of just owed a isolated dump of overclocks, basically.
Yeah.
As in, unencumbered by new weapons. I think it's something that hasn't happened yet, and I almost think it needs to happen. But I still know that it's not something that suits a main focus of a season, which is why it's perfect to slip into a season where the main focus seems to be on something completely different. And when I say completely different, I mean not even on a theme. And this is, I'm going to get out of the oven because we've had the dinner that they gave us. We've gone home now, but I've cooked some dessert for us, which is
Have you?
I have. And it's sort of just about some observations I've made combined with some light research for why Season 4 is probably going to be a good one. One of these things we have been through, but I'm just going to start with enemies being the only thing specified, which means that the focus is on them, whereas previously the focus was on equipment. You look at, and this is why, well, the sample set that we're using is actually Season 2 and 3, because we know that Season 1 is an anomaly, as in it just straight up is, and it's not representative of what seasons have been and what they will be. Right, so we almost need to discount it because it's just too much. So you look at the season 2 and 3 roadmaps. The only thing specified on the season 2 roadmap is actually the new weapons again, which means that as an update, the focus for season 2 was on the new weapons. That was the point of that update. Season 3, you sort of have an equal. If you look at the roadmap, you sort of have an equal focus on this like tantalizing new theme and also the new grenades. But there's no mention of like, it doesn't say like new warning or new enemies on it. It just mentions there's something on the way, but it also mentions new grenades. But you look at this, there's no mention of what the new equipment will be. The thing that is highlighted is new enemies. And what that means is that as an update, the focus is on enemies. Previously, the focus was on giving us new weapons. I'd argue the focus of season 3 was on the concept itself, almost. The concept of the rock box itself. But we're in a situation
I think
now
season 3, I feel like it was more, what do we do now, right? Because season 1 and 2 was rivals and weapons. They had such clear, definitive routes to go through that I think 3 was literally them like, we're not using robots anymore, and we don't have weapons anymore, like the primaries or guns. What do we do now? And that was what season 3 was in my mind. It was them stepping out.
I just mean looking at those roadmaps. The only thing that is like different across the 3 of them, as in the subheading that differs, but you have other undecided stuff. You have
pass.
Yeah, you have new performance pass and you have new season. All 3 of those subheadings exist in the roadmaps for season 2, 3, and 4. The subheading that differs is season 2, it's new secondary weapons. Season 3, it's new grenades. And season 4, it's new enemies.
Yeah.
And it's that specificity on new enemies that really puts a fat smile on my face. Because it means something. Right? It might even mean that there won't be any new equipment, which means
that's what I'm saying.
That there will be a much greater. So this is something that I talked about actually in the news video because I just couldn't resist. Where I think that when you have such a long wait, especially, making one part of the season so much more fleshed out than the rest of it is actually better. As in, the fact that enemies are the focus for this season means that they can just add a lot of new enemies and basically nothing else. But because that addition won't feel shallow because there'll be so many enemies, it makes the whole thing feel less shallow. Where season 3, all of it was kind of shallow, which makes the whole thing shallow. But if you have one thing that they go undeniably incredibly hard in, it works. Yeah. But previously, when it's been like that, season 2, the thing they went hard in was the weapons. And season 4 seems to be the inverse of season 2 to me.
And I think you it's not just, and I think this is why season 1 is an anomaly. Is season 1 they went hard in both rivals and weapons. They both went hard in, and that's why it took the longest of all seasons.
Yeah, and season 3 didn't go hard into anything.
Yeah, It just did like, here is some boomerangs, talking about grenades. Here is the new rockbox enemy type, but with less of them than the rivals, and like they're only in form of a warning, right? Which I think it needs to be stated that I think that is more of what we should expect the size of things to be. We shouldn't expect season 1s from new enemy types or anything. We should just be expecting more season 3s. But I think it is something
in this case, I am expecting season 1 because it appears that the main focus is on that. When you get a season 1 level of new enemies, but that's the majority of the content.
Yeah, but that's the issue. Season 1 is that they went hard in both, but season 3 is that they dabbled in both. But I think we're expecting season 2 full into secondaries, but they go full into enemies, and then they'll do like an obligatory seasonal theme, right? Because that's what season 2 was. It was literally like, here's a minimal, it's not actually, I would say minimal effort warning, but a warning at that point in time definitely was just kind of a thing. It was just like, here is robots in your cave. They added a little bit more to it than they needed to, but that was it. And then Nemesis, and that was it. That was all they did, and they spent the rest of their time chugging out those fucking god tier secondaries, right? And that's probably what we're going to be looking at this season. A not inherently half-assed, but clearly step down in we don't really give a shit this season theme, and then we'll be getting an absolute fucking double, triple down on enemies. And good lord, do I hope they double, triple down on enemies.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm saying. I think what I'm saying is, I think that is the case based on what we're being shown.
It really feels it.
It's the primary focus of the update, and I'm using the word update because a lot of this makes me feel like it's going to feel like more of a classic update. I think the best thing about seasons is that they've given them a baseline to add every update. At the same time, we need to sort of move away from the idea that this is their version of seasons, where they haven't actually necessarily changed their speed or the rate at which they work. It can still be very flexible.
I think they sped up a lot.
Yeah,
it's just when
like
they release it.
It's just the addition of like a minimal amount of content every update, I guess, implies that it would also be more regular. But I think we need to move away from that idea, in that these aren't seasons, these are still just Deep Rock updates with seasonal mechanics. But the problem is Season 3 felt like them just trying to do a season rather than a Deep Rock update. And I think Season 4 gives me the impression that it's going to feel more like an update with the standard season stuff that we get, which is the pass, the cosmetic tree, and the events.
Because I think I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think this may have been because I thought that like the fact that they added boomerangs was just showing that they'd lost their way. They're not listening to people like they used to. But I really do think it wasn't a thing as a whole. It was just that one slip up. I think it was that single thing, like them thinking, like, I guess we'll do boomerangs now, and then they fucking boomerangs.
Grenades in general.
I keep thinking. I guess that's the only grenade I remember, which is kind of true, to be honest. They basically, that was them just deciding this is all we really need to do. But I think this new enemies is them in their old classic form, and that includes Season 1 and Season 2. In them being like, this is what the game needs the most, and this is what players kind of want the most.
Season 3.
And I don't think people quite know it though. I don't think because I think people see new enemies and they're like, what the fuck? Like, as you mentioned earlier, like we've been getting new enemies for the last 3 seasons. Like,
that's the difference in it being a subheading instead of anything else. The fact that subheading means that it's like it's like the update focus.
Because
therefore it's the that previously, if you want to look at season 1 and 3, where the focus was on introducing the new theme and implementing that. When it comes to the idea of new enemies as the update focus, that inherently means it's going to be adding to enemies as a concept, which means which does mean new enemies pool in the normal enemy pool. That's what that means.
That was last time that occurred. That was what the.
This is the next slice of cake. Actually, where previous instances of enemies as an update focus has always meant a lot of them, and it's always been when it happens, it's like a big deal, and it also means a lot of variety. We've got 2 major instances to like build basis off of, which is I don't know what update number it is. Horrors of Hoxie's, which was the entire focus was on new enemies, and also New Horizons, which was the biome update, but it had half of it was also new enemies.
And those, and I think it's the protection, because I feel like you need to really specify what new enemies we're talking about here. That update, the biome one, that was Tri-Jewels and Brundles, right? We got them right? Didn't we?
This is the whole point. I think we can start with that. Actually, we can start with update 33, which is New Horizons. New enemy types. So I'm looking at the roadmap that was mentioned on. New enemy types is a subheading. You've got new planet biomes, new enemy types, and more unannounced stuff. But it's the planet biomes and new enemy types. Update 33 had new enemy types, new enemies, as one of its key focuses. And what we got from that was 3 new bosses, because we got the Hive Guard and both the twins.
Dreadnought variants.
Plus Sentinels. We got 2 new Mactera types, and we got all of the the Hollow Bow enemies as well, which I guess was just the Stabivine and the wasps. But that's a lot when you said you also got 2 biomes in that update. But because it's like 7 or 8 new enemies, and they're all in different areas. You've got bosses and Macteras and biome specific enemies as well. It's like 3 very distinct areas of enemies to add to. And if you go to the one before that, which I'm actually going to need to find, so I can't tell you exactly what was in it, but I remember seeing it and thinking, this backs up my point about new enemies as a subheading being like so important. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Horrors of Hoxie's, which was update 23, which was in March 2019. Added the Menace, the Warden, Bulk Detonator, the Trawler, Slasher and Guard, by the way, and also all of the Rad Zone variants. So you always get, when you get new enemies, you get a lot added to the general pool, but you also get specific stuff. Like you get something for a biome, or you get something for a specific mission type.
I think
that's happened on 2 occasions now. The biome thing. We got the Rad Zone variants in the first big enemy update. The second one brought us a lot of enemies with a Hollow Bow, but also the elimination thing where they added all the new dreadnoughts.
It's not just Hollow Bow. It's Azure World as well. I think it's worth mentioning, right?
Azure World doesn't have any specific enemies.
No, none you can think of.
Enemies.
No. Well, enemies means bugs. It just means a thing in the cave, really, that exists and like moves and probably has health. That's what's in the Beastopedia, the beast thing. So if it has health,
to the
and
original
you can kill it.
There was like a post that outlined all the new stuff, like with that update, and they placed big emphasis on the Cave Angel and the Niffer as like these new creatures. So new enemies means has always meant that it's dipping into a lot of different areas of new enemies. It's a general pool, but also specific stuff at the same time. Which is why when you think about, they got asked that question about biomes during the stream.
Obviously we're going to get that.
Do you know where I'm going with this?
I do genuinely believe that we're going to be getting a new biome. Because, right, think of it this way. They are adding new enemies. Which means they see it as it has been a long enough time since we've had enemies in the latest pool, right? Or the general pool.
Well, actually, I forgot to make that point about the new enemies. The reason why that's something that's worth an update focusing on is because that was never the focus of either the rock pucks or the robots. The focus wasn't on adding enemies. The focus was on adding the rock pucks and the robots.
The last one since we actually added enemies to the normal pool was obviously 33, and that was what? Yeah. 2.5 years ago? 2 years?
No. Maybe actually. Maybe I'm just like crazy. Update 33 was in November 2020, basically a year before season 1. I guess about 2.5 years ago now. Almost 2.5 years.
And I think you got to look at it this way, that if they think that is a long enough amount of time to then have to add more enemies into the normal pool, the chances that they don't also see it in the regard that it's been a long enough time since we've had a new biome, it's kind of like, if you're talking about big pieces of content we haven't had in a while, biome is a glaring pillar in things we haven't got on in a long amount of time.
It lines up with enemies as an update focus.
Yeah.
Because, we have both of those since the first one. The Rad Zone was already in the game, but it brought the Rad Zone variant specifically. And then the second one, update 33, brought multiple specific creatures for the new biomes. It's happened both times. you get
Yeah.
biome specific
And
enemies.
I think I am 99% sure we're going to be getting biome, but they did technically say no in the Q&A, I think, or they at least stay back off.
But they so clearly have one nailed
So
down.
they do there, and so it is either this season or next, really. And I think that's not unreasonable in that, like, it's like in another 3 to 4 years' time we should start expecting weapons to come around. It is the fact that we haven't had a biome in approaching too long. That's what it comes down to, and there is no reason not to add a biome with this new season. The only reason why I don't know why they did a new biome is if there's not really an idea for it, but clearly they do. It would be either the theme would be not Rockbox related and it would be a weird biome, or the biome is a Rockbox biome, some shit like that, right?
That's another thing I was going to bring up, because that would work as well. You know, it
permanently
I got this when I got this feeling that they might be doing a biome from what they said as well. You know, that could, you know, if that means that season 4 is going to end up being new enemies and new biome, but, you know, not a new threat from outside of Hoxie's, that still lines up perfectly with what a lot of people want from Rockbox, which is more Rockbox type enemies, and something like a new biome
enemies,
would make
Rockbox biome
would be like a massive,
and I think,
leg up for them as a threat as well.
Rockbox has the Rockbox biome makes sense for a very simplistic reason. Their color scheme would be a pretty cool one, right? Like a black and yellowy or whatever, like dark brownish, reddish, whatever their kind of color is. That a biome with using those colors would be pretty cool. But also, it would then, if you think about it, it would be the Rockbox effect biome. Like, you know, magma cores fire, glacier strata ice. This would be Rockbox, because Rockbox is a status effect, basically, and so I think it is more than warranted to have its own biome, and it would give its impact in the game a lot more. You know what I mean? Like, we were talking about how Rockbox feels empty, shallow, like it barely belongs in the game. Like, Rivals, at least, they kind of feel pretty integral, especially since they have their own game mode. But the rest Rockbox has is warnings. But if they got their own biome, and that biome had its own enemy types in it, and it's also just a pool of Rockbox enemies naturally, like, you would just naturally have Rockbox enemies in that biome, would be pretty cool. And then obviously, yeah, enemies for all the other things. It just makes sense, doesn't it? Really, at the end of the day, I don't think people would be like, and this is another thing, because I think season 2 obviously is a bit of a bad idea doing a part 2 anyway, because people had spent like a year with the robots at that point, or not half a year at least, over a bit, and they're like, yeah, I'm kind of sick of robots. I don't think people are sick of Rockbox, and at least they don't hate it. People don't hate the Rockbox. I don't think people would inherently mind that there's a new biome with new Rockbox enemies in, especially if they push the other side a lot more, right? They do really go hard in other enemies as well. And so I think that's definitely something. I think we really should expect a new biome either season 4 or season 5, definitely. It's been too long, especially if they do think
the reason
we need new enemies.
The reason why I actually want it for season 4 is because, and I guess none of my points specifically say this that I've got written down. I guess it's just about what, when they talk about like what the seasonal model giving them a minimum amount to add every update. Does that mean you get something new? You get a new gameplay stuff and you get new equipment stuff, or is the season minimum actually just the pass, the tree, and events? Because I think it might be that, and it's why this roadmap gives me this strong sense that, this strong want, especially reading it, it makes me want them to break this this chain that might not even be a real chain. That is they don't actually need new equipment. But if they still want more than one focus, you could do enemies and a biome. And that would be crazy. Yeah. That would be like amazing. And people, and obviously I think there's a really good point to make about enemies in that really livens up the variety of build variety, especially if you're adding new enemies into the normal pool.
No, yeah, it is almost weapons in how much it would do for in-cave experience. It really is. To think about how differently the game is played, like imagine if tri-jaws weren't a thing, if like Corona shellbacks weren't a thing, like how differently your experience with the game would be. And obviously some enemies, they fumble a little bit, like this is why we think the Brundles need interaction, because they aren't that. You could delete them and nobody would really care, which means they're a bad enemy type. But like I think just like if we get new enemies that have just as much presence as some of those ones in a mission, that will feel so different, right? Like this brand new enemy type, just a single one of them just dominating your experience for a mission. Then you go into the next one and a new one is like, yeah, I'm here and I'm fucking you up right now. And then there's a new one and it's not that bad, to be honest. You can deal with it pretty easily, but there's a lot of them, so this is getting out of hand. Just some shit like that, right? That experience of testing out this new enemy, how you're supposed to engage with it, where do they fall? Are they the tanky type? Are they the high value target? Are they the normal type? What weapons are good against them? If there is enough of them, that is more than enough to sustain a season. And by enough of them, I'm really talking like 10 to 15 more enemies.
10 was my first guess.
Yeah, like I think if we include, if there's a new biome and the rock pox get more enemies, that would be like the extra. I think 10 in the normal pool, maybe less than, maybe 5 to 10, no, not 5 to 10, 3 to 5 was what I was thinking. Yeah, 3 to 5 rock pox and rock pox biome based enemies, and that would get 15 more enemies in the game, and I think that would be enough. I do honestly think that would be a perfectly kick-ass season, but if they have them done and ready, and if they could, putting out the overclocks would be a cherry on that cake. Like, I think that would.
I know. I want to bring that point back.
That would do enough.
In case anyone happens to be listening, I really want to make this point clear: is that overclocks are only ever going to be the cherry. Perks. I understand the perks thing that like wholeheartedly. I'm really glad they're actually saving that so they can make it a major focus. But overclocks will never work as the major focus in update unless you decide to introduce a new category of them. By the way, if you do that, then sure. But as they stand, as a system, they don't need to be reworked. As just general pieces of equipment, they don't need to be reworked in how they work. You just need to add more of them, and that's never going to be as significant as adding more weapons or as reworking the perk system. So it makes sense as a sideline addition, especially considering for most players it will be a sideline addition because they're not going to know. Most players aren't going to know that those overclocks are new. Yeah. Because they won't have got them all yet. We'll know that they're the new ones because they'll be the only ones that we're getting. But that's why they will only ever be a sidelined addition. But I still think the game could do with them. This is actually something as well. Don't save them for later. It's time. Time has come.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would not want to make overclocks a prominent part of the season because they want the seasonal stuff to be accessible like almost immediately.
Exactly.
Right? And while obviously that's a bit iffy with the new weapons, you having to level up your character a bit, and perks, you'd have to level up your character a bit, do some things. It is still a fact.
It's always close enough. It's always close enough on the horizon, especially when combined with all of the other gameplay content that's immediately available. If pass, it's fine.
If the whole season was like, jump on now and get these like 3 new overclocks for each weapon,
the overclocks are inherently hidden behind RNG and hidden within the grind as well.
You would then be like, oh yeah, 3 new overclocks. I'm looking forward to this. You get the game. It will take you like 400 hours before you get like the new overclock you wanted, let's say, right? And obviously that's what the whole argument came down to, like recently. But it still is the case that like, overclocks is not an accessible enough piece of content to be the main pushing selling point, other than whatever the thing would be.
Yeah, but that's why I get sort of a bit like leery about the idea of the fact that they're saving them. They're just not doing that at the moment. It's like, what are you waiting for?
I think it does seem like
it's even more recent now, especially with this promotion thing. I guess that makes sense, but it's like, but the problem is they don't have enough time because they don't see it as worth focusing on.
Yeah, but as mentioned though,
it's
they
not.
can't focus entirely into it, can they? They have to do the season and whatever the quotation marks equipment, because that diagnosis is gone now. I don't know what I'm going to call this extra one. It used to just be equipment additions, but now I guess it's going to just be like game play experience editions or some shit, or experimental edition. But that sounds really off. But is it that thing? Those two are your main importance. The overclocks are never going to be that, and they will always come behind that, and that is how they're supposed to be. But it does result in them not able to actually add to them because they're just not those two, which is why I think we're going to have to wait either this season or next season where it can be slipped in easily.
If season, oh, hold on, because this would be perfect for me, by the way, right? What I'm about to suggest. But one of the thing I want to say about season 4, from season 4, the most is the primary focus being on these enemies, which it seems to be. Which means I don't want them to sort of like, they haven't really. I don't want some new type of equipment to just spring up and suddenly become an equally big focus. I don't even want to necessarily think about equipment for season 4. I want to see a season that doesn't even touch that. But the point is, overclocks wouldn't change that. It would still be an entirely gameplay focused season, even if they had an overclocks in. But what you could do, and what would be amazing, would be, breaking down that barrier even further, kicking it in the ass and sending it to prison or something, I don't know. And season 4 is enemies in a biome. Season 5 is, complete perk system rework and some new overclocks. The focus is on equipment for season 5. The focus is on proxies for season 4.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah, and I think if we look at it like that way, those two seasons would be like, honestly, I mean, I think we think about it like they would be immaculate. Like coming out of those two seasons, because obviously it would take a while, but like if we could just send our mind into like a year into the future, if those two things that came out, we would orgasm them like instantly with how amazing those additions would be, even if they weren't nailed perfectly. Even attempting those things and aiming for those goals, which I mean, knowing Ghost Ship they'll nail it, but you still know what I mean. Like even attempting them will lead the game into a much better place. It's just I don't know, it's so fucking immaculate. And there was going to be a point that I came to, but I completely forgot it halfway through this sentence. I think it was about the time I said ejaculating. But
I just mean what we know about season 4, despite it being so little, it is immediately in part breaking down those walls by having the only thing that's specified being new enemies. That is true as of right now. And that inherently, in my opinion, puts it above season 3.
I think it also implies,
and they can't repeat season 3. Season 3 was the least traditional update that Deep Rock's had, in my opinion. That's why it sucks.
Also, their most that's also the most successful, though. Is really how you got to kind of look at it. And I don't think they inherently take that everything they did was right.
I know exactly. I think they learned the right lesson. Actually, new theme. That's the lesson they learned, and that's right.
Yeah, maybe. But it is actually really interesting because when they talked about season 3, when they talked about season 3 and how amazingly it sold and played and everything, they really didn't inherently describe it as anything they did right. Inherently, but they were like the news circuit was like the perfect time or some shit like that. They basically said like all the other things other than the game also just happened to come together, and it just fucking did really well.
The PlayStation thing.
I mean that yeah, I guess, yeah. No, that wasn't the PlayStation thing. The PlayStation thing was its own thing. Just releasing it on PlayStation, shit tons of people played it. But it was a thing that when season 3 of Deep Rock was coming out, Deep Rock was being covered by legitimate like news, right? That like, I mean, by legitimate I mean like Kotaku or whatever, like gaming news. But it was still a fact that that's like the first time it's ever really been covered like that, and like seriously, and just media picked it up. Like media as a whole, like YouTubers, and that came up, and season 3 just fucking exploded, just because of a bunch of not inherently out of their control stuff, because they did do interviews on purpose, but it just got bigger than I guess they could have planned. So I don't actually think they inherently think that season was perfect, and that they need to do exactly that from now on, which is clearly what the case is with season 4 being so different.
We do know that something they got from that was that they don't think that sequels are the best idea. Which means what they learned did so well. which means they're right about what they got right with season 3, which was simply the fact that it was a new theme. Which is, I think they just want to keep that up, and that's absolutely fair. There was nothing else there was nothing specific about season 3 that was actually particularly good, apart from the fact that it was a new thing. Because I do think it is a bad Deep Rock update, where Deep Rock updates always had a very heavy focus on something. And season 3 felt completely unfocused, and that's why this season 4 roadmap is actually very I like it a lot. I still miss the days of having more than one update outlined, but it does tell us that as an update, the focus is on enemies, and that's a renewed sense of that's what Deep Rock updates used to be like. They would take something and do as much as they could with it, instead of season 3, which just didn't. They just tried to introduce new things, and it's like you have new grenades, right? But they didn't do much with the grenades because you can't really do much, which means the thing they had to go hard into was like a completely new concept / mechanic,
Yeah.
Whereas we already have the concept of enemies, and they can just go hard.
I think that is what
enemies.
That is what I'm on about. In that season 3, it really feels like it was their introduction to seasons without weapons and rivals. That's what I'm on about. It really feels like it's them taking their step out of what technically defined seasons. Like, as much as seasons, they probably saw it further. Like, seasons were never always going to be rivals, right? And always going to be weapons. They knew that from the beginning. But it was still a fact that they had the comfort zone of knowing that season 1, we got these to do. And season 2, we are going to continue that, right? Secondaries and, like, continued rivals. They had the comfort of knowing what they were doing for those. Season 3, they were like, fuck.
I hope it showed them that split focus actually doesn't work, right? Because the only reason it worked in season 1 is because it was just an anomalously huge update that they spent a lot of time working on. Therefore, the quantity was actually equal in terms of the themed content and the weapons. Season 2, the weapons completely overtook that because there was very little in the way of themed content. Season 3 seemed to kind of split the focus. And neither one worked.
That's the issue, though. That's the issue with season 2.
They tried to have a split focus with season. They tried to have a split focus with season 2, but they couldn't because weapons were too much for there to be a split focus.
And the issue with season 2 is that I think you've got to look at it this way: the themed content is the marketable content. Right? When the Kotaku, as mentioned, was commenting and talking about Deep Rock, they were talking about the Rockbox. The Rockbox, new enemy type Rockbox, meteorites Rockbox, right? Barely a mention of the grenades. Because the other side, which is the weapons, the grenades, and now the enemies, people only give a shit about them if they're already playing Deep Rock. That is the content that players of Deep Rock want, not what people want to hear when they're joining a game. The fuck does a random schmuck give a shit about if Deep Rock's getting new grenades? No, they don't care. New Rockbox enemies, that looks interesting. Might get that, right? But no, a person that plays Deep Rock is like, finally some fucking grenades. Hell yeah, it's been so long, right? Like stuff like that. And it's these enemy types. We, who play Deep Rock, is like, all these new enemies are going to be fucking fire. I'm so fucking hyped for it. But like, as far as any random schmuck Joe down the street's concerned, that I assume plays games, but just not Deep Rock, they're like, well, I don't give a shit about alternate other enemy types in the normal pool. Like, obviously, it probably won't be unappealing, but like, it's not anywhere close to as cool as it is for us. That's what the theme content's for, right? And that's why the Rockbox Part 2 wouldn't do well, and why the Rivals Part 2 didn't do well. Because what is the news supposed to cover? Because they were like new enemy type Rockbox, these new things in Deep Rock Galactic. Now, if they do Rockbox again, it's like Rockbox is here again, doing this now, but still Rockbox. Like, the news can't bite a hold of it, so they won't cover it, so it won't sell as well. That's really what it comes down to. That a new theme, it's the word new in it, and new means it goes in the news. I think that's why it's called the news. And
must be.
Yeah, but the point is, it really is the fact that the seasonal theme needs to be marketable for it, and I think that might be something that they they may have learned from season 2 and season 3 that season 3 Rockpox, while not inherently being the best gameplay thing in the world, like they hear people complain, right? Obviously, and like the people's critiques of it, they often patch it out, but they listen. I'm pretty sure they have YouTubers that they're a lot closer to, and I think Axis Chronos is probably one of them, and obviously he's quite outspoken about it. And I wasn't a huge fan of season 3, so they know season 3 wasn't inherently perfect for the game, but it sold incredibly well. So what did they do right other than season 2? They sold it better. They sold the seasonal theme better. It was a new theme. The media grabbed a hold of it. Everyone grabbed a hold of it. The game sold incredibly well. And that is probably what they're going to be looking at.
As long as the actual things are new, it's actually very easy to market, because when it comes to the flaws of season 3 as an update, I think it actually comes down to they just tried to come up with new things, right?
Yeah.
Instead of like season 4, obviously is going to be coming up with new enemies, but there's immediately a focus there. Where season 3, it was literally like, what's every new thing we can introduce? Let's try and introduce some kind of like infection mechanic and like. A warning, it's a second
primary.
A second primary objective. Let's introduce cleaning tools. Let's introduce like meteorites. They're just trying to come up with as many different new things as they could. Instead of focusing on one thing to add new things to, which is enemies, but they're still going to be inherently new, which means it's going to be very easy for them to market. So I think they're actually in a very fortunate position. I just wish it wasn't going to take so long.
But as mentioned, it's really not inherently the content, but it really is the holiday events. But I think, and I mentioned this for a very specific reason, if we were to teleport our minds a year into the future about this game, it would be immaculate, I imagine, because this right now is a bit of a rough stage. But what they have put in place, the foresight that they have enabled with these holiday events and this season, from what we can tell, sets up a very beautiful future for the game.
It's a transitional period almost, isn't it? You have to see it that way, because there's been a breaking of the I don't know, I guess a change in the earth and the wind and the rain, as it were, of this taking an 8-month gap between seasons is, I think it represents a shift of some kind. It has to, and I hope part of that shift actually is maybe we're actually seeing the when seasons are going to come out is actually going to shift overall. So I don't know when season 5 is going to be, but if it's still 6 months, that means it's going to be June, December, which actually sounds pretty cool to me.
What I'm thinking about though is that. It's not really a good idea releasing a season around Christmas, because people are going to be.
I did think about that actually. No, but Tyler, it's like, when else do you just save it for when there's nothing going on? Because you see, June's the only time in summer is the only time in any very live game's lifespan when there's not going to be much going on. It's actually the perfect time to release a new season, and it's only because that seems so good that every other time is going to seem too packed for the season to be able to shine. So you kind of just have to accept that. It doesn't. There's no other time that actually makes sense. But you can't, put 2 seasons in summer. There's only ever going to be one season around this time of year.
But as mentioned,
the season that isn't in June is always going to be surrounded by more events.
In saying that, though, Harry, unless they really gun for it to be this way, I think it is quite possible that season 5 could come out in 5 months. Right, because as mentioned, they are not going to be distracted by anything else.
We'll see. I do want to see that.
In the past seasons, they had to do holiday events. They do not. They do not. They literally patch out, sort out the patches season 4, and from then on, working on season 5. Like boom, job. Well, July is when they have off, right?
Well, it'd be July. I think it's July and August, right? A little bit.
Well, right. That's going to be a bit awkward for them, isn't it? Because unless they release it early June, they're really not going to have much patch time before they go on holiday.
I know.
So they might not want to be releasing it often there because of that, really, if you think about it. It'd be quite unfortunate for them. But either way, they'd patch out all that stuff, let's say, maybe do a little bit of brainstorming, go on holiday, come back, and then from August till then on, they'll be just literally the only thing they have to do is work on like maybe they'd have to have like the seasonal hats. But other than that, they could just work on not seasonal hat, holiday hats, and then that's it. Seasonal stuff from then on. Just dedicated, no other distractions needed, except they're probably going to be slightly distracted with publishing and that. But the main team won't be, obviously. But like the heads probably might be a little bit. Like I think Mikkel, he said that he's kind of in both kind of areas. But yeah. Point is I don't know. I'm really fucking hyped for the future of the game, but it's hard to get hyped now because now is the bad times. Now,
the summer event, if we're going off the last one, started on June 20th.
Right. So I think we could be looking at when did the season 3 drop around like the Halloween event? Like on it, in it, or like just after?
In it.
Right. So sure. I think we might expect something along those lines. They probably might synchronize those two things. And hell, there could be a chance that season 4 could be like summer based or some shit.
I think Halloween ended shortly before.
Either way,
season 3. But no, it's
it could be that season 4 comes out and then
3 weeks long as well. They made it last longer. Yeah. And they went on break like immediately after. I don't know when their break starts. I don't know if it says.
I thought they dropped the event and then they just went. Either way, yeah, I don't know. I think we got to stomach the next month or two. By stomach, I mean we still got anniversary stuff to chew through, and I mean, not that much, admittedly.
No, I want to talk about that another time, because I want to talk about the evolution of and what they've done with the holiday events and what I still think they need to do. But that can be another episode. That's for another time.
All right, yeah. But I think we've got the Q&A tomorrow, which will give us a lot to chew on.
Episode of the Dev Q&A review. I've got it. I've got what it's going to be. The Dev Q&A 5th anniversary edition. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's going to be part of the same series, but quite different.
I'm going to set
it up so I've got all the different tabs of those sections up, and I'm going to find where they start, and we're probably going to play them at like 1.25 times speed or something. Maybe. And
they'll like talk about it, and then we'll just like pause at the end, and then we'll talk about it, and then we'll play, and then they'll do the next question. Something like that, right?
I want it to sort of. I want it to feel as close to they're just reading and answering the questions for us, because we would like read the suggestion and then the response. I want it to sort of play like they're doing that, and then we just talk about it as we normally do. Hopefully it will. But yeah, I mean, it feels strange to say the future's looking bright, but I'm being honest, it's looking better than it was on season 3.
You know what they say, Harry?
I'm pretty confident about that. But you're gonna say, what are you gonna do here?
I was actually gonna do your saying. I wondered where I got it from.
I know,
but I've forgotten it. Do it. You do it.
The night is darkest before the dawn.
Yeah, we're currently quite in the dark. And I don't even mean like it says something that even though we just got a huge anniversary event and they've got the anniversary going on, that we're in the dark, because that is just kind of how good the state of the game is right now. But it doesn't, like, if you look at seasons as being the only real addition, it's quite dark. But that is how they've alleviated that. You can't do that anymore. Holidays are content, and they are reasons to play the game, and they are reasons to come back, and they are things to do.
I know, but there's still one thing I want to touch on before we go, which is, do you think we're actually going to see people responding to the gap this time? We must be, right? Especially if we're going to you'll get that Easter event, but then it's like, it's not like season 4 is round the corner, and we didn't have double XP last Easter, but we're going to have it
next month.
Easter. Yeah, end of the month. Oh no,
Right.
hold on, like mid-April.
So we still got like a holiday event each month.
It will be but it will be double XP Easter this time, and it wasn't last time. But it's not like the
Yeah.
season's round the corner this time. It's going to be a longer wait, and people are going to be getting even more XP. I want to see it come up in the community where it's just like everyone's like finished and everyone's waiting. I think there's a chance that might actually happen this time. There's going to be more people waiting than before. There's going to be more people who are done.
I mean, there are definitely way more double XP events has occurred.
There's going to be more people who are done before the next season is around the corner than usual.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we probably will see a rise in people being like, can we get it yet? I
just want to see people say that, because you don't get that because people are so positive, but we haven't been in a situation yet where people simply have more time to finish it this time. So I want to see that. I want to see that response. I don't want to see people just go silent afterwards and be like, "Oh, I finished it. I guess I'll just play another game," which you should play another game, I guess. But it's like,
I think there is like a valley though.
I want people to notice. Yeah. I also want to see what happens with the valley as well. If there's going to be, in terms of player count, if there's any kind of not response.
But I'm not sure.
Like right after Easter, what's it going to be like?
I don't know, but I think it's interesting because I think, and I didn't mean valley like that. Well, it's going to be the case. It might see the numbers start fading before like teaser season. But like, I think more it's like you don't play the game enough and you don't really care. It doesn't matter. Like season time doesn't matter, and so you're like high up. You don't really give a shit. You enjoy the game for what it is, and you just go play other games, so the time doesn't affect you. Then there's like the low down valley that I think we were in, where we care about the game and we just can't like it's just hard to play it because there's nothing new on the horizon. There's nothing to interact with. It's just it feels like the game is dead, basically, that it's been abandoned. Obviously, that isn't the case. That's what it really come close to feeling like before the Oktoberfest event. But I think at this point, we are now on the other side of that, where we're so like attuned, because of what the devs have now shown us and given us, is like it's so attuned to where they're going with the game that we can see that this long time isn't just because they're not doing anything, which is kind of what it felt like for season 3, like approaching season 3, right?
And like, even a bit after. Even though it's obviously wrong, because
but it felt like it.
But they did a really good job of making it feel like it. And I still think they have some communication issues. I just think they could be more elaborate. They show a very simplistic roadmap that shows a later like release window for seasons than we've seen before, and they don't seem to treat it with the importance that it deserves.
And I think it's interesting as well because.
But I think it's because they just want to put their heads down and get on with it. They don't want to spend too much time excusing themselves.
Yeah,
and I think that's
but it's
fair.
like it is interesting because he mentions. I swear it is. Yeah, they mentioned something that like early on, all of the people like that worked in Ghost Ship, they were allowed to like. I don't mean, probably still is the case, but they're allowed to just like go on the Reddit and go in the Discord and just like communicate with players, right? And that was just a thing, and they didn't restrict on what they were allowed to talk about, right? They just imposed some self ones, like people that work there were like, yeah, let's not spoil next season because I'm not a shitty person, right? And like that kind of thing is really interesting because that implies that they really should be a lot better at communicating with the fans than they are, especially since they were always there, right? And not just like I think Jacob, right? Because he's the community manager. Like he's the one that often gets the one that has to respond to stuff on the Reddit and that. But like a lot of the devs are always in the community somewhere, like just kind of residing, watching, maybe commenting. I saw, I don't remember the dev's name. He's not one you see often on the Reddit, like comment to something. But like they're always kind of there and they always can comment, but they never really feel that communicative with the fan base, generally.
Well, I think it is harder to do now.
Yeah, definitely.
We could probably do an episode on this and how the factoring in of community forums, how that's changed and how those forums have changed, which is like, I guess Discord and Reddit are the most obvious ones, but YouTube still functions as a public forum for discussion on the game. But it's like those forums have become a lot more divided as they've become a lot bigger, and I think it takes the Ghost Ship still want to develop the game in a reactionary fashion. They still want to do what people want, but it
And,
takes
like,
longer.
interact
It
with them
takes
and
longer
everything.
to sift through the forums to see what people really want and what the game needs, because everyone's so divided now, which means they're getting pulled in more different directions, which means they need to be more careful. Which is why I
Yeah.
think it actually almost needs to be based on not just what people are saying they want, but actually based more on response to previous stuff. That's exactly what I get sense from with this. What we know about season 4 is that the response is that they need to make enemies that fit in the normal pool, because that's a criticism that's just very
Yeah.
consistent. You know, but it's taken a while for that to build up to be something that's clearly wanted
I
from
mean,
the community.
it took me what, like 1.5 years to realize the issue with the new enemy types, and that it's that they're not in the normal pool. Like, it took me like, fucking 1.5 years to realize. Wait, I know the reason why the robots and rocks feel wrong. It's because they're not just a normal enemy that you can bump into.
That's only because we've had 1.5 years of them, and that's why it had to take that long for everyone there to be that criticism of them consistently.
Yeah.
It needed to go on for a while to go shit, to not necessarily to pick up on it, but I guess for them to pick up on it and see that that's what the game needs. It's just become harder to see what the game needs based on what the community's saying. Which can actually slow things down. It can slow things down for a developer that is very reactionary, which is why the minimum content, I mean, that seasons provide is actually very useful. Which is like, okay, we know we have to provide like a set of incentives every season, which is the performance pass. It's like a new like medium term progression that gets added every season. So we know we have to do that, and that's never going to change. That's actually good, because it's the thing that's a very like rock solid thing that they can just do every update that's going to benefit everyone. But it's actually good that they've got that, because overall it's become harder to see what people want. So at least they've got something that they don't have to like do that with. They've got something that can be the same every update, which means they don't have to make decision making on that part. But I think their decision making has become more difficult when it comes to the content that people respond to. You know, no one responds to the performance pass; they just work through it because it's an incentive and it works for everyone. All the other content is the content that people respond to, and therefore Ghost Ship have to make decisions based on that. But there's just more people, so it just gets more muddled. You know, and it's good that they've got content that is always going to be received well, which is the performance pass and the cosmetic tree. So it doesn't have to change. So that's a good thing about seasons. And I really am trying to stop seeing them as other games' seasons. It's but the only reason it was difficult to see them that way is because season 3 felt so much like they were trying to do a season like another game. Yet season 2 and hopefully season 4 will feel more like Deep Rock updates with this the season minimum.
Well, I really hope they perfect it this time, though, because season 2, while good, wasn't perfect, because they needed to add everything the game needed, or not everything the game needed, but it's like a sizable amount, like, the secondary and like elaborating on the rivals, or in a way that markets well, right? Like, as much as the players it doesn't really affect, it affects them. And I feel like if they can nail the perfect update for the players and marketing and, like, getting new players, that's it. That's the formula. Keep it going. Like, if they can do both, perfect season for the players, a perfect season for getting more, that's it. That is, and then keep it up.
They mentioned they found a formula that they like, but I think that's only in reference to the season minimum, which is the performance pass tree and the seasonal events. Everything else doesn't have a minimum tied to it, which is why that's where there won't really ever be a formula for that. That's the thing, which I think is a difficult thing to navigate. There's not going to be a formula for the other type of content because it inherently has to be something different every time. So it's going to be much harder for them to find a formula, if there even is one for that. Good luck, guys. That's what I'm saying. Either way, I think I don't have anything else to say on this actually, for
Yeah.
now. So
I think obviously, I mean, I have a lot more I want to talk about on the enemies, but most of them is just me coming up with them.
well, yeah, I
I
mean,
think I've
obviously we
said
know
on
we're
my
going to do a pure like brainstorming session podcast, but that's
yeah,
not this podcast.
no.
Um,
And yeah, I think I look forward to that. But it is a fact that despite there being very little, we have still managed to make how long of a video on it, Larry?
2 hours 23 minutes.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's just yeah, it's a mixed bag, isn't it? Really sad that the season's extended, but we know why. So you know, because they worked on the holiday events and all that stuff and occurrences, and we don't know what the theme's going to be or anything to do with it.
Yeah.
But we do know about the new enemies, and that's fucking hype. And I've really been looking forward to that.
And I
and
agree
then
I agree that it's a mixed bag, but I'm also having a very easy time not being pessimistic about the game.
oh no, not at all. Yeah,
Maybe the community though. I mean, I was just going through the Reddit earlier, and I just got really fucking annoyed.
yeah, it's becoming rough to go through, but
And
I think that's going to have to be something we have to expect more of.
I think Ghost might be in a similar position where they probably need to tune more out than they need to take in from the community. There's way more that they should be ignoring than they should be just taking and running with, you know.
Yeah. I think it's
everything that we say they should run with. But...
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in all fairness, though, Harry. In all fairness, new enemies in the normal pool. All I'm saying is that it's probably one of my main ones.
Yes, but you can also see how they would draw that from the consistent criticisms across the last 3 seasons. It's been the main thing, and it's an extrapolation, obviously, because I don't think many people in the community realised that was the issue. A lot of people didn't like them, but Ghost Ship. Maybe we helped. I don't know. Maybe we helped nail down what the actual problem was, but they could. It still doesn't. It's very. I think it's very easy for them to see that the problem lay in the new enemies. I just don't think much of the community realised what the specific problem was.
Yeah, not inherently.
That's why I think you might have a point. We did see the actual problem, and they seem to be going in the direction that is alleviating that problem.
Yeah, so, and I think it's interesting what they do though. From here moving forward, is because these enemies are all they're specifically enemies adding to the main pool, right? Yet, like obviously the rock blocks and the rivals, they're still going to be in their own little categories. But like moving onwards, do you think that they're going to actually like alleviate that issue with seasonal stuff, or do you think they're going to just keep it up? Do you think all seasonal enemies are going to be their own separate like bubbles, and they'll just every so often add to the main normal one? Or do you think from now on they might realize what the issue is and try and blur them all together a little bit more, like get a little bit of a mixture going on?
I think that after season 4, they're going to try something that isn't particularly enemy focused at all, at least for one season.
Yeah, it's just really difficult to see what that is.
Unless it works out really well.
Yeah.
You know? Well, no, because the other way of doing it would be the other stuff that you do in missions that isn't that isn't enemies, which is...
I guess it's a game mode, really, at that point, right? I mean...
Yeah, I was thinking about that. But I was also thinking about overclocks, right? You know, how hot on people's mind the concept of overclocks and the overclock grind is. I don't think overclocks are actually that irrelevant. And if you want to dedicate a season to equipment, adding new overclocks and machine events is a pretty damn good idea. But that's for another time. I just sort of had the stroke of I don't know, I had a bit of a light bulb, I guess. Where I realised, but that, you know, that's gonna that conversation is gonna die down now. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Although I don't think the player base is gonna grow as much as it has been. I think it's gonna actually stay pretty. I don't see Deep Rock going like miles
I
ahead
don't-
anymore.
I don't think Deep Rock's going to explode, but I still think it's going to grow and grow and grow, right? I mean, obviously, every time they release a new season, it will peak, right? It will peak.
I mean, them doing this like this change with the promotion thing. That is for people who are in that grind, and most people are in that grind. Most people aren't right at the beginning of the game anymore.
Yeah.
Most people have done at least one promotion, which means most people know what overclocks are and they know what machine events are. It wouldn't be detrimental to focus on those for a little bit. It really wouldn't. You could get, and I don't want to say get away with it. You could reason it. You could make that a rational thing to focus on for a season.
Endgame Part 2. Even though I think that was a thing, right?
Endgame Part 3.
Yeah.
Endgame Part 3. Come on. Either way, that's all from the Barrel Vision podcast for this week.
Yeah. I think
if you enjoyed this, please make sure to save it to your favorite playlist.
Yeah, should we do a thing? I think this would be a pretty interesting thing for long term. If at the end of each podcast, because obviously we do them about once a week. I mean, obviously it never used to inherently be once a week, but we really do at this point.
It's still not, I haven't changed that. Actually, have I? Hold on, because I know that I changed the I sort of refreshed the channel description recently. Okay, it does say Thursday podcast. Okay, so that technically we are supposed to be doing a podcast every Thursday.
But even then, my point is, it's like our most frequent, reliable thing on our channel, right? And I think it'll be very interesting if we, at like maybe the end or just at some point, make sure we remember to have like a current mood on Deep Rock. It's like something like that at the end, right? That we can then like track, because I feel like we already kind of mentally know it, right? That we know that like the July, September of. Well, I guess June, July was like a pretty miserable time to be playing Deep Rock, and through season 3 we weren't exactly happy. We were probably more middling, but like right now we're on like a high, right? I think we're actually both pretty fucking chuffed right now. Obviously not 10 out of 10, but I think if I was to describe my current like happiness for Deep Rock, not inherently playing it, just like thinking about it, I'm sitting at a solid 8, right? Like these new enemies got me giddy. The future of the game is really interesting. The fact that they virtually confirmed that they were just getting holiday events out of the way to make the rest of the game like easier, and the season being longer and not being as much as an issue, stuff like that. Like I'm fucking hyped. But obviously a bit of bad news. The season's delayed by quite a bit. But yeah, I'm sitting at an 8 out of 10 for happiness with Deep Rock right now.
I wouldn't say quite a bit. I don't think that's actually fair. It's like it's definitively less than 2 months is what's been added on, right?
Yeah.
And that's because, right, so the expectation was for season 4 to match season 2 plus a year, basically. The actual Steam launch of season 2 was April 28th, end of April. If you add 2 months onto the end of April, you get the end of June. So it's not insane. Like 2 months sounds like a lot, but I wouldn't call it.
It was more
It's
that
not insane. It's not. I'm not like fucking sweating.
It was more that the 4 to 6 months. That was such a prominent thing they were saying, right? They said it multiple times. 4 to 6 months. Like I think whenever anyone asked when a season was, they were like, "Oh yeah, we try and release it like 4 to 6 months after whatever." And the fact that they have broken it by a significant margin, another 2 months over, right, is not a good thing. It is a bit much, and I think that is a pretty big L. But obviously, if you take it, if you were only knowledgeable enough into the game to like a medium level, you would know that when the season's coming out, but you wouldn't know why, and you would be pissed, right? You'd be like, "What? Why is it taking 8 months? What is this, Halo?" Right? But because obviously we are stupid knowledgeable, and you're even more stupid and knowledgeable, that we know that it's because they just got holiday events out of the way and just fucking blitzkrieg the shit out of all of them, got them all done, so then they can focus on the season for the rest of their
I think
game.
they did that though. I think they did that because they were actually taking. I don't think they did that to the holiday events actually in response to specific feedback. I think they did that in response to their. What's the
They
word?
weren't happy that their seasons.
Is it demographics? Maybe. Well, there's the player base fluctuations and what that taught them. So if I were to rate my mood, it's actually probably the same as you, but maybe for slightly different reasons. In that I feel a pretty positive shift. In that I think there's been a lot of reconsidering going on, where they've been taking a lot of time to actually go through feedback and go through what's changed, like in terms of player retention and feedback over the last 3 seasons. And I feel like they genuinely the time that's been taken is actually been taken to, as in they've been working on the holiday events to give them time to reconsider what they're doing with like the main content, but they're also doing it in a way that's going to help the game overall. But I think they have been using Pad for time, so they can sort of take in feedback and consider what worked about the seasons and what didn't. Which means I think we are, in terms of the actual content of updates, we're going to see a pretty a change for the better.
I think at this point in time, as long as they don't add like 3 new enemy types, right? As long as they add like more than that, I think we are very much looking forward towards one of the best, if not the best season. I think it might be the best in like all regards, other than obviously time it took to release, which is a pretty bad one.
What I'm saying. I hope that season 4 is like a collaboration of like the feedback from all 3 seasons sort of combined into one to create like what they hope could be like the new like standard. I hope I hope by taking this extra time, they're trying to set a new standard for themselves, which is better in terms of like components than say season 3, but it's not necessarily as strenuous in terms of quantity as season 1.
I think better focus. I think is a pretty. I think that because season 2 is very focused.
Exactly. I think they want to. So I think season 2 could be argued to be a middle ground between season 3 and 1 in certain ways. I think they want to find a middle ground between season 1 and 3, but it's still different from season 2. It's not. They don't want to do season 2 again, but they still want to find that middle ground. But not whatever season 2
I don't think we're never going to see, like, season 1 took too long. We're never going to see something on a scale of season 1. Like, that's just too much for them to do consistently in a reasonable amount of time. Season 2 was unmarketable, and the seasonal actual edition wasn't really, like, pleasant enough, I think, for most people. Like, it was like a +1 to the last season. It's like, well, so, I mean, secondaries were good and all, but it was like a bit mixed. And then I think season 3 covered everything in a good layer, but like that layer was pretty shallow. But so I don't know. I think they're getting there. They're definitely getting there. They've made a bunch of mistakes, but they've also nailed a lot of different things along the way. And I think as long as they erase the mistakes, get what they did right, put it all into one season. Season 4 may be the best we've had so far, and I think season 5 will be the best in all regards, because I think season 5 will be done in a reasonable amount of time, and I mean reasonable in that their goal 4 to 6 months, and be like pristine. But I think season 4 either way is going to be a pretty good one, because simply new enemies is exactly what this game needs, as in new enemies in the normal enemy pool. And so I'm fucking chuffed. 8 out of 10.
I don't think season 1, 2, or 3. I think they all failed to freshen up the roster, but that was never the goal of them. And that's why I think it's pretty obvious that's what's going to happen with season 4. Because once again, having it as a subheading means that is the goal. It's just to freshen up the roster, and that hasn't happened in a while. In fact, in a lot of ways, I'd argue the additions made by the previous seasons have actually almost made that feel worse because it made the roster more unpredictable. You sort of had
Yeah.
these very specific factions that sort of came in and out, but made quite drastic changes to what worked and what didn't. Instead of having additions to the foundation that changed the meta in a more concrete way, where it's just like these guys are here to stay. So how the meta shifts in response to them is gonna stay relevant. As opposed to rival content which gets sidelined and Rockfoot's content which will probably also get sidelined. And in fact, I hope they do sideline it to make way for content that doesn't need to be sidelined. Because I think the problem with the previous seasons is that content should be sidelined. And I think that's what I'm very happy about with Season 4. It looks like they're making content that won't need to be.
I think the only issue is that it seems that I don't think these new enemies, this season hasn't implied that they've learned that they've made seasonal content worth staying. It seems that they've anything doubled down on it, because these new enemies in the normal loot pool, they aren't to do with seasons. They're the equipment pool, which is already something that stays as part of the game always and becomes an integral part of the game. That addition has always been that case.
Yeah, putting it in that slot is exactly what they needed to do.
Yeah, but they haven't put seasonal content in that slot. They've just done that slot. They are still drawing a line between enemy types that are adding to the game permanently and seasonal content. There is still a line drawn there. If the new enemies was up there in the new season section, I would be fair enough, or new enemies in the normal pool or some bollocks, right? If that description of what new enemies was in new season, we've had disturbing reports of unseen fodder down in the caves of Foxes. If that was in the new season area, I would believe that they are adding permanent additions to the roster as the main season thing, but they're not doing that. They still aren't. It is
that's what makes it feel like. I guess that's what makes it feel more traditional, though. In that this time it's the enemies that are going to stick around.
Yeah, but it still shows that they.
Maybe that means the jetpacks will be temporary.
It still means that they haven't quite. I don't know. It either seems that they haven't quite figured out that the seasonal stuff needs to be a little bit more permanent as well, or that they are fine with the seasonal stuff not being center stage all the time, and that they want there to be bubbles of these random relics of seasons in their game. Which I don't think they quite want, because I don't remember, it was an off remark on a dev stream, being that even they're aware that the game's getting a bit cluttered, or give it enough years, there will be too much random shit in the game if they keep it up the way they are.
Exactly.
Random seasonal bollocks.
That really that lends itself to a really potentially frustrating conundrum for me, where that very paints a very clear picture that equipment is the most correct additions to make, because equipment almost can't get bloated in a way, or it's far harder to bloat that side of the game than mission content side of the game.
And I agree with you, but
it's also much harder to market, so it's harder for them to chase that, go down that road.
I think there is a difference there, though, because I think bloat is obviously visual when you look at the terminal in the map, the map terminal. That is where bloat resides, I would say. In the caves, it is funny, right? When we play during the holiday events and we have our fucking depository that's half our screen's length with just shit tons of random things, that I think is kind of fine. It just means there's a lot in the caves, and that's cool. But I think it's the overwhelming amount of whatever you're looking at when you pull up the map terminal, and it will only get worse if they continue to add. I think new biomes is still what they should do. 3 new biomes and 3 new game modes, but there's only one of each of them because they're super special, funky things, and more parts of the map are being corrupted by some other thing, and the more cluttered that map gets, the worse the game is going to be. and obviously, I don't think adding a new biome will inherently clutter it. But if that biome has like some funky part to it that only that biome is, and it like breaches out into other biomes and some other shit like that, then it starts getting a lot muddled. But like, and I think the fact that I'm really kind of my conversation sentence is muddled. It's just that's kind of what would happen if you looked at the map. Like, I imagine you play the legacy version. I mean, look at the map compared to now, right? Like, how, and like, imagine that in like another 5 years. Our map now getting like times complexity and additions to, you know, the map in like 5 more years, right? If we keep it up, it's going to be too much. It is going to be far too much going on that screen. And I think that's what they have to worry about with drawing a line between seasons and actual permanent good content. At least continuing to consistently do it. Like, and that's the thing. Like, I think if they do another enemy like Rockpox or Rivals later down the line, that'd be fine, right? But I think if every season becomes irrelevant, that would kind of suck. Like, I think like just every so often we should get a season that is just like the game but better, and it just adds to the game overall.
Yeah, I was tempted to bring this up, and I don't really want to because it's going on for too long. But the idea of things coming from outside of Hoxie's, the only reason we got sick of that is because we had robots for a year. And then it was another thing that came from outside Hoxie's. It wouldn't have been as big of an issue, I don't think, if there wasn't a rival sequel season at all. And I think you could almost have season 5 do that, a similar thing. You could almost have season 5 have something come from outside Hoxie's, as long as it's not every time. That's the only thing.
I will still say that's still a lazy story device.
You could do something else. I know. I agree. Yeah. I just mean that I think season 4 is just going to break things up, and that's what we need. It's just going to not feel like the other seasons, and I think that's exactly right. Like, as long as it's good, it doesn't even matter what type of good it is. As long as it feels different from the other seasons, they've done a good thing. So that's what it really. They don't even need to like do that. It doesn't even need to be that insane at all. In fact, it needs to be the opposite of insane for me. Because it needs to feel more natural.
I think honestly, I think if they pull from the 2 updates, but like the 2 updates after the game launched, right? If they pull from like those kind of things, in the like the main, like literally, like, because that's kind of what they would do if they added if they added a biome as the seasonal thing and these new enemy types. That is essentially update 33 again, right? But it would be reformatted in the way of seasons, wouldn't it? Like, it would be used as a season theme and used with a season pass going alongside it. Like, I don't think. I don't know. It's very confusing. Like, in what they can and can't do, what works and what doesn't, and I assume that's why they're struggling. But it does feel like they've got a hand on it.
And because it takes a long time for updates to come out, it takes a long time for them to dip their fingers into different areas and get feedback on different approaches. Because those different approaches still last a long time.
Because this is something though. If you think about it, right, if they don't have overclocks, which I'm not 100% on whether they should or shouldn't or will or won't, but it's an option, I think. If they don't, though, I think that would be a very interesting piece of data point. What would how well does a season do if there is no equipment addition?
Yeah, but you say like that's a good idea for them, but. It's like,
but because we'll have to wait another 6 months.
Yeah. It takes so. It makes that kind of development. It almost seems like it doesn't fit because they're very flexible, but they're not fast enough to do things like that. Really.
And I think there is a thing that if Ghost Ship, if you're listening, you could pull this little sneaky, release it without overclocks, but have overclocks ready. Like,
Ooh,
have,
that's a
have
brilliant
them have them just sit back, and if people like in a month or two start being like, yo guys, we ain't got any for fucking equipment to gnaw on, just pull a ghost ship out of you
They
and
remember.
just say, and here we listened to you, and here's some overclocks, but
We
you
made them
secretly
all
had it all along.
yesterday. We made them
Yeah.
all within the last hour.
Yeah, we listened to you and releasing them now. We definitely didn't want you guys to have backlash.
I guess part of the overclocks thing though, because I think it was for season 1 was when they had a bunch that they were prototyping, and because they didn't get in, they just put them on the back burner. That means that everything that they were making was for Gen 1 and 2, and I suppose I almost don't like the idea that they're waiting so that they can focus, so they can make like overclocks for.
I don't know
Gen
if they're
3.
waiting. I just think they legitimately don't have the time. They've yet to have the time to work on those overclocks.
Or they just haven't picked a time because they haven't seen a time that makes sense, even though I think it's reasonable to do at any time.
Well,
but
yeah,
I want to see
I'm saying,
overclocks for Gen 1 and 2 more than anything, to be honest.
yeah, obviously, because I mean, what's it been like 3 years since we had over? Yeah,
it's a really good way to freshen up old weapons.
Yeah.
What the fuck is that? Is that a fucking spaceship?
Depends. Is it a spaceship?
Yes.
All right, then I guess you're getting space invaded. Well, Harry's being attacked by the rivals. I think we'll rudely cut it here because this is going on for a while.
It's when the sun shines on planes and they shine, like they look like fucking UFOs.
Oh, UFO! Aliens!
If we can get just honestly, I think it'd be fucking awesome if they just did something that comes from outside of Hoxie's, but it's like the most standard ass UFO you've ever seen, and it's just these little green basic Martians running around with plasma pistols.
I think they should fuck around more and find out. Like they should just add a very generic sci-fi ring UFOs, and they should just add it to the game and just have it be like a 1,000 to 10,000% chance of just flying by the window at some point, and it just do nothing. It's like error cubes. It's just a random thing that occurs for no good reason, and people will lose their fucking mind. Like they'll be like, there's a UFO. Did you see that? Did you see that? And it'll go on Reddit and it'll fucking blow up, and the devs will be like hush hush about it, and it'll be like really funny. Like they should just do more shit like that. Like error cubes are so fun and cool because they are entirely pointless and they just feel conspiracy. And they should be doing more stuff like that. And that is not relevant at all. And that is not in the fucking roadmap. And we're leaving. Goodbye, New York City.
I was gearing up to end this.
I threw my mic. It was on my bed.
Mic. Yeah, I think I literally said thanks for watching 40 minutes ago. So, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to subscribe.
I often do that. So
do what?
If you got, I often try and end a video and you continue it up for the next 3.5 hours. So shush. My turn to be energetic and irritable, and that's not the right word.
Yeah, well, see, you don't know the reason it doesn't work.